enhance these entities' viability, namely by directing more purchasing to them, would have a dramatic effect going forward. And then let me close by sharing this thought. When life throws situations like the one that we are in, we need to have certain guiding principles, whatever they are. I mean, all situations like this have happened before, even though in slightly different fashion. Think 1918 Spanish flu, right? Nothing in life is new, but our guiding principles remain the same. And we all know what we want the supplier diversity programs to look like and achieve. It's not rocket science. It's all about what each utility in the utility space can do to increase diversity spend. It is as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. Either you understand or not. Firms such as BGE excelled in the space with 50% spending goal. They get it and are committed to it. In times like this, a meaningful action is required in helping these small entities to survive, because what's good for them is good for all of us, right? Now, I think it was President Obama or someone once said that a meaningful change never comes if we wait for some other person or some other time. We're the ones that we've been waiting for. We're the change agent that we seek. And how true that is, because we really are the ones that can lift us up, everyone here. And when we work together with the sincerity on worthy causes such as achieving diversity and inclusion, not because we have to, because we want to, I think we really work towards that America we talk about, which fully lives up to his ideals, celebrates the diversity of his people, and encourage all Americans, in our case, all Marylanders, right, to pursue that American dream. So that's why we are here today, to be reminded of that. It's not what life throws at us, it's how we show up that matters. This time, we really cannot preach Christ and practice corporate. This time is different. I just want us to think about that. So thank you.
Thank you for those remarks, Secretary Rhee. I'd now like to recognize the Honorable Delegate Davis, member of the Maryland House of Delegates representing District 25 in Prince George's County. Delegate Davis is also the chairman of the House Economic Matters Committee. Chairman Davis.
Good morning, Chairman Stanek. I am not good with this technology stuff, so I'm going to trust that you can hear me.
Later, sir.
Thank you. First of all, I'm not sure whether to be excited or not. I was listening to Secretary Rhee, and one moment I'd be excited, and then I'd go down when I hear some of the other things. So I'm on a bit of an emotional roller coaster here. But in all seriousness, on behalf of Speaker Jones, who was unable to join us today, and certainly my colleagues in the House of Delegates, we're excited about this conference and what it represents. Over the years, the Maryland General Assembly, and in particular, the House Economic Matters Committee, we've had an interest in equity and diversity in the business of providing essential services, public services, and utilities in our communities. There have been concerns over time that historical forces and doing what we've been doing is the way it's done. We're keeping many good people who needed a chance, particularly in minority and women-owned sectors, from being able to participate meaningfully in providing services in the utility arena, not just as line workers, but as participants in more substantial and capital-intensive activities, contracting, subcontracting, procurement, and the like, and management. As legislators, we started a discussion with the Public Service Commission and with utilities and followed up with proposed legislation, at least as far back as the early 2000s, requiring utilities to set minimum participation requirements for minority business enterprises and utility operations. Mindful of the changing constitutional landscape, the Public Service Commission has worked with us to require public reporting by utilities of minority businesses, enterprise participation in many areas, and have kept the legislature informed of their efforts to increase participation by minority women-owned businesses over the years. So today is another one of those, I guess, checkpoints where we get to hear you all come and report and the participants of all that has occurred and carrying out that directive. Again, it's, as we've heard from Secretary Rhee and yourself, in your opening. These are challenging times for all of us. And more than ever, this is particularly important to our minority and women-owned businesses from all persuasions. They need this lifeline to continue. It's just critically important. It's vitally important. I thank you all, the entire commission, for all that you've done to implement this, and certainly our utilities for giving a good faith effort to carry this out. Thank you for allowing me to participate. I'm going to try to check in and out a little bit. I've got a couple of things going, trying to keep a few balls in the air, but I'm excited that you all gave me this opportunity. I'm excited for what this moment represents, and have a great conference today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for joining us today and for being a good partner in the House of Delegates on these issues with us.
Thank you, sir.
Next, I would like to introduce Ms. Sharon Pinder. She's the President and CEO of the Capital Region Minority Supplier Development Council. Good morning, Ms. Pinder.
For this opportunity. Let me see. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, just checking. Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Casey Brent, also for this opportunity. Just to kind of a reminder of who we are, the Capital Region Minority Supply Development Council is an organization whose mission, after 48 years, is to ensure to provide our corporate members and primarily a private sector, although in our particular territory includes state, federal, and local government, with competitively viable minority businesses. And so a lot of our members are a part of few of the signatories of this commission. And so we're very, very proud to be here this morning. I want to say congratulations to some of our members who have met and exceeded their 25% goal in 2019, and that's in Exelon, BGE and Pepco, AT&T, and Potomac Edison. So we're real proud of our members there. I was particularly struck by Secretary Ree's comments, and I could just echo a lot of what he said. I won't repeat. He had wonderful statistics, but I won't repeat all of them. But what I will tell you is that there's an old economic adage that says when America catches a cold, minority businesses catch pneumonia. And so if you think about that, and you think about just what's happening with majority businesses, I was reading something this morning about some of our businesses around town, Under Armour, for example. If you think of what this pandemic has done to them, then you can, in comparison, just begin to imagine what this pandemic is doing to our businesses, to our minority businesses. And then what I also want to take into consideration, this conversation certainly shows up in terms of the wealth gap and the health gap related to COVID. But we also have to layer on top of that the social injustice, the George Floyd situation, in the time frame of what we're talking about, certainly having a great impact on our businesses. A lot of our businesses don't have the kind of equity due to structural racism. They have less of a cushion to withstand this particular moment in time. And if you recall, during the rush of government intervention with the PPP loan or the EIDL loan, part of which was there to kind of help pay the rent and cover payroll and benefits to employees, many of our businesses were left on the curb because they lacked the banking relationships. And according to the Center of Responsible Lending, 95% of Black businesses and 91% of Latino-owned businesses had virtually no chance of receiving a loan. And some of that played out, as you saw in the press, in terms of some of the companies that received loans and many that did not. And we received many phone calls from some of those companies just really hoping that we could help them in terms of securing some types of loans. And so what we saw in the second phase of that, some of the federal funding was geared toward minority banks and some CDFIs in an effort to get down to some of our businesses. But in spite of that best effort, there are still a lot of businesses that did not happen for, because quite frankly, they were in trouble before March, or the margins just in the operation of their particular industry sector were very thin. And it is in the 2009 recession, just as a point of reference, considered to be at that particular point in time the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression, saw 60% of Black businesses close and not reopen. You can just imagine, because we're still in phase one of this pandemic, what the worst outcome is going to be for our businesses. So what are we doing about it? As an organization, we kind of hunkered down and took cover on this, starting back in March, like many other businesses and like many other nonprofits, like we are. We started teleworking, and that brought on a whole new gamut of things that people had to kind of get used to. We decided to look at the federal government, for example. So along with the Capital Region Minority Supply Development Council, we also operate two centers funded by the U.S. Department of Commerce Minority Business Development Agency, and that's the MBDA Business Center, Washington, D.C., and the Federal Procurement Center, which is the only one of its kind funded by the federal government in this country. And so we taught businesses how to do business in disaster. And that the federal government was still open for business and contracts were still there. We also created what we call a hot sheets newsletter and webinars, where we sought to, with all this information that was becoming prevalent to our businesses, our goal was to get past all the noise and to focus on the information that was prevalent to the businesses. And whether it was our chief procurement officers, whether it's doing business right now, the future of cybersecurity that we're about to embark upon, any of those things, that's the kind of thing that we embarked upon in terms of taking away some of the noise. Nationally, we have a campaign called In This Together campaign, where our corporate members are banding together and putting up funds so that we can, in particularly, fund some of minority businesses. We're looking at what some of those alternative funding methods are, because at the end of the day, there are two determining factors that really impact survivability, and that's access to capital and that's access to opportunity. And so the question becomes, how can the utilities help? They can help with our business to prepare our businesses for the long haul. A lot of them did not have continuity plans, but we'll, as I talked about, we're seeing a surge, and we're still in this the first phase. So quite frankly, I'm afraid of 2021 and what that will bring. And so we ask that our utilities, and some of them continue to be intentional about seeking diversity suppliers, that they be transparent about opportunities, that they continue to support bona fide advocacy groups such as ours, whose mission is to support competitively viable minority-owned businesses. So how are they currently helping? Well, we know that Potomac Edison and Smeco and Washington Gas others continue to seek from us those suppliers, and we can ask that behavior continues the same. But we also hope that the PSC recognizes and support those who are sincerely helping. I'd like to point out a couple of them. AT&T, for example, has given us a grant to help our businesses that cannot afford to be certified. And that becomes real important, because in order for some of our businesses to take advantage of those opportunities, they need support in that area. Frank Kelly and Bernice Lewis and certainly Calvin Butler and Keisha Parker, we certainly thank them, because they had the foresight to understand that in order for us to help our businesses in terms of this during this time, particularly Black businesses, they provided a $50,000 grant to us in order to kind of make those things happen. And so as I bring to closure the conversation that we're having today, I am optimistic that with companies in place, such as the utilities, and I am optimistic with the PSC holding folks accountable in terms of their spend, that we're going in the right direction. But I'm just hoping that we dig a little deeper, only because we're in unparalleled times that we've never seen before, and I hope we'll never see again. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you for your comments, Ms. Pinder, and for your leadership on these issues. At this point in the agenda, we are going to transition to the 2019 reports that were filed by the utilities and public service companies. And we'll begin with a staff presentation by Casey Brent, who is the director of the PSC's Consumer Affairs Division, and Anna Joy Thompson, who is a regulatory economist at the Commission.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, commissioners, and thank you to today's speakers, the business community, and supplier diversity advocates for supporting this year's supplier diversity hearing. Your testimony provides an invaluable insight as we continue to improve and tailor our program. The signatories have demonstrated their voluntary commitment to the Commission's supplier diversity program by expanding opportunities for minority, women, veteran, and LGBTQ-owned businesses, as well as nonprofit organizations as they compete for contracts with public utilities. I would like to commend all utilities present today, as for the second year in a row, the utilities have collectively met the program goal of 25%. This amounts to a record $1.07 billion in total diverse spend. It's an increase of $125 million in diverse spend from last year's data, with 8 companies meeting or exceeding this year's program goal. As we discuss data from the 2019 reporting year, we must also keep in mind the current state of small business ownership. This year's hearing, this year's hearing theme is unfolding in real time, inspiring historic policy responses for small businesses. However, the pandemic has disproportionately impacted minority and women-owned business enterprises. Today, the utilities will speak to their best practices and limitations in engaging these businesses, as well as report on data related to LGBTQ and veteran-owned businesses and Tier 2 spending in response to last year's public determination. The Commission should take note of the significant strides made since last year's hearing, but also consider how new data is being tracked and reported. This data will help the public, private, and social sectors better understand and address the challenges faced by NWBEs. It'll also play a vital role in how programs like this remain committed to building more inclusive local economies. Again, I thank you for this time, and now would like to hand the floor over to technical staff and thank them for compiling the data in this report.
Good morning. One moment, please, as I pull up the PowerPoint. Okay, can everyone see that?
Can, Ms. Thompson.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Anna Joy Thompson, and I'm presenting the Supplier Diversity Annual Report on behalf of staff. The Supplier Diversity Program, or PC52, has been in existence since 1994. Prior to 2019, it was docketed as PC16. In 2009, the Memorandum of Understanding formally outlined all the requirements that all signatories have to follow in order to ensure that each company meets the 25% aspirational goal. The companies that filed their 2019 annual reports have been doing so consistently at a minimum for the past 5 years, with the exception of one company. This is very encouraging because as the companies continue to file their reports, staff can use this data to spot trends, and the companies can use the report to find ways to collaborate among themselves. The main goal of the Supplier Diversity Program is to encourage each signatory to award 25% of their procurement spends to contractors that are qualified as diverse. These contractors can be minority-owned enterprises, woman-owned enterprises, service-disabled veteran-owned enterprises, veteran-owned enterprises, LGBT-owned enterprises, and non-for-profit organizations. In addition, among other requirements, these companies have to file every year, as well as provide a detailed annual plan for the current year and an annual report for the previous year. This year, I'm happy to report that the program has once again met its goal in awarding 25% of the total procurement to diverse suppliers. The diverse spend ratio, DSR, moved up 3.32 percentage points. This increase was achieved by increasing the diverse procurement by 13%, while keeping the total procurement relatively stable. We saw a 13.28% increase in diverse supplier procurement this year, as well as a 0.60% increase in total utility procurement. As you can see on this graph, all of the 16 companies that filed the report this year have filed annual reports at some point over the past 9 years. The companies have been more consistent with filing the reports for the past 5 years. For example, since 2009, 7 companies have filed the reports every year, whereas over the past 6 years, 15 companies have filed their reports every year. This is important because it helps facilitate the measurement of annual performances and shows broad participation in the program, which increases the program's diverse procurement. As shown in the slide, the DSR is a ratio, which equals diverse supplier procurement divided by total utility procurement. You can increase the DSR by either increasing the DSP, the numerator, and keeping the TUP, the denominator, unchanged, or decreasing the TUP while either increasing the DSP or keeping it unchanged. Neither of these scenarios is the case overall. This year, the program records the highest total diverse spend procurement and the highest total utility procurement. As the graph shows, the difference between the diverse procurement and the total procurement has been decreasing. This year's DSP is $1.069 billion, and the TUP is $3.603 billion. Compared to last year, DSP increased by $125 million, while TUP increased by $21 million. On this graph, the red lines correspond to the right axis, and the blue bars correspond to the left axis. The red line represents the annual percent growth in the DSR, and the blue bar represents the change in percentage points from the previous year. In 2018, the DSR was 26.37%, and in 2019, the DSR was 29.69%. This is a growth of 12.6% and a change of 3.32 percentage points. As you can see, this year has continued the trend of increasing growth in the DSR. This table corresponds to the graph on the previous slide. As you can see, the DSR has been consistently increasing since 2012. Annual change versus annual growth is similar to miles versus miles per hour. Annual change can be seen as steps towards the 25% goal, similar to the distance traveled by a car going from point A to point B. Annual growth represents the average speed at which those steps were taken, or how fast the car traveled as it moves from point A to point B. In the past 8 years, 8 companies out of the 16 have reported increased DSP. Last year, 7 companies met the 25% goal. This year, 8 companies met the goal. This table shows the amount of DSP spent with the 4 original categories this year compared to what was spent last year. Veteran-owned enterprises and LGBT-owned enterprise categories were added for the first time these years. Totals include spend from those 2 new categories. Minority-owned enterprises received about 36.96% of the increase, which equals $46 million. Service-disabled veteran-owned enterprises spending decreased by 15%. This table contextualizes the performance of the program over the past 3 years. These are averages over the 3-year period of 2017 to 2019. The average DSP is $943 million. The average TUP is $3.491 billion. The average DSR is 26.97%, which surpasses the 25% goal. The average annual change is 2.53 percentage points, and the average annual growth is 9.48%. To conclude, staff will continue to work with all the signatories in order to improve on the above. Staff appreciates the efforts by the signatories to provide us with the data needed to compile this report. Thank you for your time. We look forward to seeing the progress that is made over the coming year.
Thank you very much, Ms. Thompson, for crunching those numbers.
My pleasure.
We will now transition to a presentation by the Maryland Utility Forum regarding their presentation of data on the 2019 reports. We're joined by Valerie Shearer, the president, MQ Riding, the vice president, and Kathy Nutter, the secretary. Good morning, Ms. Shearer.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and good morning, commissioners. I hope everybody is doing well. I am going to bring up our presentation, so hopefully this will work accordingly. Can you see?
We could see it.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you this morning. On behalf of myself, MQ Riding Co-Chair Kathy Nutter, we'd like to thank everybody. We are presenting this morning on behalf of the Maryland Utility Forum. The members are listed on this slide. Our commitment continues year after year, and we remain dedicated to the continued success of the Supplier Diversity Memorandum of Understanding. We remain committed to providing diverse business owners with opportunities to compete for contracts, and we look forward to continuing our partnership with the Maryland PSC as we strive to increase economic growth and development for diverse business owners in Maryland. Our goals for 2019 were to assist members in meeting or exceeding the 25% diverse spend target, provide opportunities for certified businesses, share best practices, serve as subject matter experts of supplier diversity, target certified diverse suppliers in the investment, law, and accounting fields, ensure consistency and uniformity in reporting, and develop a pipeline of potential diverse suppliers for key spend categories within our industries. For the year 2019, our accomplishments were, as previously mentioned, we increased overall diversity spend from 23.6 to 29.69%. We instituted provisions to track veteran and LGBTQ spend. We established consistent reporting to include these categories as well. We initiated revisions to have one consistent MOU for all companies. We conducted quarterly meetings with the commissioner staff. We developed a bylaws manual for the forum, and we've explored ways to engage new companies and expand development of supplier diversity. 2019 was a good year for everybody. This year has been a bit more of a challenge with everything going on with the COVID. We as a forum have been discussing ways how we can support these diverse businesses and how we can continue to grow them through these trying times. And we look forward to doing what we can this year and in the future to keep increasing that growth that we've been experiencing.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Those numbers are obviously heading in the right direction, and the commission and both the forum have been tracking this diligently. Thank you very much.
Are there any questions?
Do commissioners have questions of either staff or the utility forum? Hearing none, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Excuse me.
Oh, Commissioner Linton.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I just had one question for the staff and maybe for the forum as well regarding the inclusion, the continued inclusion of the not-for-profit organizations. For our staff, we've been struggling with this question for several years now as to whether or not we should continue to record spend with not-for-profit organizations. The state of Maryland ceased doing that several years ago. It's still included as part of our MOU, at least as part of this report. Do you have a recommendation? Is it something that the commission should continue to pursue?
Commissioner Linton, so if you note in the report, and Anna Joy can probably correct me, I believe that nonprofit spend this year was up significantly, I think to the tune of 200%. So I'm not certain how beneficial it was to the companies that increased that spend, but I think that I don't know if it's significant enough to continue to include it, but noting such a big increase in last year's data, I don't know if the forum or the companies have any comments regarding it. I don't think that I have a preference either way.
So
we don't, but we had this past year, we we got approval to include some of the advocacy organizations within that spend as well. So I believe that has helped with the increase and would continue to do so going forward.
If I may, so they did experience over a 500% increase. However, that's because in 2018, the non-for-profit spend was about $2,800, whereas this year it was about $18,000, but that's only 0.002% of the total diverse spend. So it is quite small.
Okay. Well, I guess I'll reserve future questions for the companies to see what their plans are for at least the remainder of this year. There might be some opportunity to increase that spend in light of the challenges we're facing now with COVID-19. Maybe some of those not-for-profits are providing some assistance in the energy field. So I'll save it for them for later. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Linton. I believe Commissioner O'Donnell had a question.
I did, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. I continue to be impressed by the great diversity represented on the commission itself and in our commission staff, and as you mentioned in your opening remarks, and it includes on the commission proper a military veteran, in that I was on active duty for 8.5 years in the United States Navy, and so those numbers presented by Ms. Thompson with I believe I heard a 15% decrease in veteran service-related disability-owned businesses, DSP, were concerning to me to hear that decrease. And I'm wondering if staff, either Ms. Brent or Ms. Thompson, could give some background or context for what they believe is indicated by that decrease.
Anna Joy, and you could probably run the numbers, but I think that partially it is due to including veteran-owned businesses. So there's an increase on the veteran-owned business side, and the data that's reported is fairly close in range. But Anna Joy would probably have more detail on the actual reporting data. Commissioner O'Donnell.
Yeah, I was going to say the same. At this point, I don't have any direct answer to that question. However, we can, if we want to make some assumptions, one of which is that adding the veteran category could have taken away from the service disabled veteran category. So if I can pull it up real quick, I believe the service disabled veteran owned enterprises experienced about a $7 million decrease from last year to this year. Whereas with this new category, the spend with veterans, veteran-owned enterprises, this year they received $48.5 million. So if you're looking at veterans overall, both inclusive categories, then they actually experienced quite an increase. So I'm not entirely sure what caused the categorization to jump potentially for some from disabled veteran to veteran owned. But that's the only answer that I can think to give you.
I appreciate that very much, but it is continues to be concerning to me. The addition of veteran-owned businesses was not intended to take away from other categories being serviced under the program overall, and just like the addition of LGBTQ or veteran and the veterans, none of the other categories should have been diminished by those additions, but it should have been incrementally additive, in my opinion. So that's something that is concerning to me, and we should probably watch very closely in the future. And maybe if other presenters later in the day can comment on that, if they have insight, it would be appreciated by me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. At this time in the agenda, we will move.
Mr. Chairman, could I just ask one question?
Sorry, Commissioner Richard.
Yeah, thank you very much. Ms. Scherer, thank you for your presentation. I want to find out if there's been any discussion about just trying to increase the number of participants in the MOU. Looks like we've seen a drop off in the number, but is it possible that we could maybe try to get more companies participating in our supplier diversity program? I know that could have a short-term impact on the raising the denominator and thus the overall ratios. But it seemed like that would be good for the state if we could get more companies involved. But anyway, could you comment on that?
Yes, I actually started to work with Dominion in 2019. I worked with them very closely, and they actually attended a couple of our meetings with the commissioner's staff. Unfortunately, they were not able to join, I guess is the best way to put it, because they said most of their spend was with, I can clarify that for you. They said the decision was not an easy one for them, and several key factors played into their decision. One, they do not require third-party certifications from their diverse suppliers. And then majority of the spend in Maryland comes from their Cove Point liquid natural gas offshore shipping terminal located in Lesby, Maryland. And they said it's a very specialized plant, and they're on a lot of diverse suppliers that can provide the types of services they needed. And therefore, for those reasons, they were not willing to join the MOU at this point in time, but said it's something, I'm in contact with them at different events, and we continue discussions to see if it's something we might be able to move forward with them in the future.
Great, thank you. And I don't know, it's a tough balance. I mean, I think we want to be inclusive as possible, and while we celebrate and really want to congratulate those utilities that are exceeding the goals, I think everyone who's a member helps Maryland win in this area. So to the extent that we make sure that everyone feels that by participating that there's no downside, there are no downsides. But only the fact that we're going to welcome and congratulate whatever efforts they can make to increase their spend in this important category. So anyway, I guess that was more of a comment than a question, but
Okay.
Just a thought. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll continue discussions with them as I see them. This year's a little bit more challenging. We haven't seen as many people as I normally do, but I have had discussions with my contact there through email. And we'll continue to work with them to see if, in the future we can get them to join.
Thank you. At this point, we will move to a panel where we will hear from the experiences of several diverse suppliers and the impacts of COVID-19 on their businesses. We'll be joined with Lori Dowling, the Executive Director of the National Utility Diversity Council, Dion Joyner Weems, founder and CEO of the Audacity Group, Tom Dvorak, president of Dvorak LLC, and Tony Hill, managing partner of Edwards and Hill Office Furniture. We'll begin with Ms. Dowling.
Good morning. Good morning, Commission Chairman, Commission members. On behalf of my board of directors, chaired by the Honorable Kimberly O'Gwen of Arkansas and Rob McLean of Southwest Water, I want to commend the Commission and the reporting utility companies on the success of your 2019 Supplier Diversity Program. At NUDC, we cite the work of the Maryland Commission all the time to other commissions in the country who are interested in advancing their own diversity work, and to companies as well. And I especially would like to commend you again on the assessments by your staff. You have the best assessments of any commission in the country, and I hope that you realize what a treasure you have in the information that you're gleaning every year from your staff. It's really fantastic. Here at NUDC, we talk about usual emergencies like hurricanes and earthquakes, and unusual emergencies like this pandemic. This year, I think we're likely to find ourselves in both usual and unusual emergencies. And that's going to mean that opportunities for suppliers, especially diverse suppliers, are going to be very important for utilities to manage and for commissions to help utilities to think creatively around. Because when we think about what's going to happen, we're going to need to be able to manage our usual work of providing reliable, safe, and affordable power, communication, and water, along with helping to enhance opportunity for the communities that we serve. And so the support and guidance of the commissions are going to be very important. You know, for NUDC, though we're a very small nonprofit organization, we've really focused on trying to find ways to help our fellow organizations wherever we can. We've been making our virtual capacity available to organizations like Asian Americans in Energy and the Environment and Commerce and California Black Chamber of Commerce for virtual meetings and information on COVID response, CARES Act, all kinds of opportunities like that. In addition, we've developed a number of free tools and webinars that are already available on our website and others that are going to be happening in the current months, especially looking at successfully adding to your supplier diversity capacity during emergency times. Those are all going to be coming online. In addition, we have been very concerned about the opportunity for companies to follow up on the statements that they've made recently about racial equity. So we've created a number of free tools for that that are available on our website and that are going to be distributed through the National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners in the coming months. Secretary Ree cited the UC Santa Cruz study in his remarks, and Ms. Pender spoke about the challenges that minority-owned companies have been facing, especially with regard to accessing capital through the CARES Act and its ancillary programs. We agree with them 100%. This whole process is highlighting a challenge that we've long known existed for diverse-owned businesses. But sadly, we've all been so busy doing our work that I think we haven't moved it forward in the way that we should. And we're so lucky that organizations like Ms. Pender's are available to help us keep our feet to the fire on this. Interestingly, I'd like to make you aware of an action that has been taking place in California. All of the regulated utilities supplier diversity operations joined together during the month of April to present a weekly webinar series for the diverse suppliers and associations in our state. And the primary focus was to make sure that ongoing knowledge of contracting opportunities was not in any way diminished by the lack of in-person access. And so each of the regulated utility commissions, regulated utilities and the California Public Utilities Commission's supplier diversity staff presented information every week in a free webinar that was attended by about 250 people every week. It was really great to see them all working together and to hear about the ongoing contracting opportunities that were still available during the course of the COVID Safer at Home program. And that work continues. They're still doing virtual updates on contracting opportunities now. In preparation for my time with you, I asked the California Black Chamber of Commerce, which is chaired by former California Public Utilities Commissioner Timothy Allen Simon, what they felt it would be important for me to share with you in terms of insights that the Black Chamber has for the future. And there's one thing they asked me to share with you for your thinking about in the coming months and days to come, which is there's an area of significant growth available for DBEs that has been untapped heretofore to the degree that it could be, and that's specifically around clean energy. You know, states are, in fact, I'll quote Commissioner Emeritus Simon, as states embrace clean energy legislation, it is imperative that the voice of African American and diverse businesses be an active part of proceedings and dialogue. The growth of opportunity for DBEs in clean energy is significant, especially for the long term. These companies are no longer new in this field, and they need to ally with utilities in supplier diversity. I would echo that. This is a tremendous area of growth, not only for our economy, but also for diverse business enterprises, which are underrepresented in the clean energy economy. And I know that Ms. Pender and other organizations in the Maryland service area have really been thinking about this. We would strongly encourage you to help in any way that you can to provide this opportunity. The work of the PSC right now is to help encourage opportunity for diverse suppliers and to help the regulated utilities and their cousins from the municipal side to really think creatively about how to keep projects going while we're in an unusual emergency, facing usual emergencies, and trying to make sure we keep the power and the water and the communication running for our customers. I sort of like rubbing your stomach and patting your head, which is not so easy. But, Maryland is a very agile state, and I'm quite sure that you can do all of these things. We commend you, and we thank you for all the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Ms. Dowling, for those comments and for the work, the continued good work of the NUDC. Next, we turn to Ms. Dion Joyner-Weems. Good morning, Ms. Joyner-Weems.
All right. Give me 1 second here. Can you hear me?
We could hear you fine. If everybody could please mute themselves. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, the commissioners, and Casey Brent for having me. My name is Dion Joyner-Weems, and I am the founder and CEO of Audacity Group, a brand and marketing shop for bold ideas located here in Baltimore. And there is nothing bolder than the Maryland Public Service Commission's commitment to providing greater opportunities for small businesses like myself to compete. As a national leader, you have set the tone, especially after last year's milestone of nearly 1 billion, I'll get it right, 945 million in diverse supplier contracts. That's a big deal. That's a great example. To Secretary Rhee, who is going to become my new best friend, your comments still sit on me. They were such great points. And now more than ever, do we need to create environments for mutual respect and diversity. A little over half of all Black-owned businesses will survive the impact of COVID-19. We have all quoted the University of California, Santa Cruz's report that 41% of Black-owned businesses have already closed. 41% have already closed compared to 17% white-owned. Both my husband and I are business owners, raising 3 amazing boys, attending Baltimore City schools. People knew that COVID would be hard, but no one understood that it would be devastating. The question has been asked how companies can better engage and provide access to WMBEs. And for me, simple, sustainable change begins and ends with capital. Capital that is earmarked with intention, specifically for minority-owned businesses, not based on credit or relationships. Of the $2.2 trillion offered through the CARES Act, 90% of Black companies were not eligible. I know that you're aware of this, but I have to repeat it for people who are watching this live. Of the $2.2 trillion offered through the CARES Act, 90% of the Black companies were not eligible, including my company. To care, I'm a storyteller. Marketing is all, that's what I do. To care is a verb. It's an action. It means to feel concern, to look after and provide for the needs of. Money provides access, plain and simple. But the Paycheck Protection Programs, the CARES Act, did not seem to care about the small Black-owned businesses. Historically, African Americans receive business loans at half the rate of our white colleagues. And when we do receive a loan, it's at a higher percentage rate, which of course can lead to default payments, right? Which can cause your credit score to plummet, right? Which leads to a future expectation of either A, never getting a loan again, or your interest rates being higher in the African American community. And there is a lack of a sincere, genuine relationship with the banks in the African American community. According to economists, which it hurts, this one killed me. According to economists, the average African American family in the United States has less than $9,000 in reserve, right? So my mother used to call it the rainy day fund. In case shit happens is what some people look at that. $9,000 compared to our white counterparts, so our white families that have 50,000. COVID-19 uncovered the systemic issues of racism and economic disparities that small businesses of color have been fighting against for decades, from redlining to subprime lending, from our health to access to health care, from lack of wealth to poverty and unemployment. Yet, and this was mentioned earlier, and I appreciate that, and yet, despite the odds, Black-owned businesses make sacrifices. They pull up their bootstrings, they hustle, they find a way to make it happen. They use their credit cards, they take out second, third mortgages, they use their 401k, anything to achieve the dream of ownership. Yes, our small Black businesses need support to increase capital to scale, right? Yes, they require technical assistance to take advantage of the tools and the software that aid in business. Yes, they require marketing and communications to support and attract new markets. And maybe all of this could be possible if African Americans had $50,000, grand just stashed away, but we don't. And it would take us, 401 years to try to catch up. I will end this testimony in the same manner in which I began. I believe the best way to engage and support WMBEs begins and ends with capital, earmarked with intention, specifically for minority-owned businesses, not based on credit, relationships. It's just based on the will to work. So I will just say thank you for continuing to give opportunities for small businesses like myself to continue to do what we love. But the support is needed. Financial support is needed.
Thank you for passing Joyner Williams. Well, next we turn to Dvorak, President of Dvorak LLC.
Morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners and Secretary Ray. My name is Tom Dvorak, and I'm the president of a local electrical contracting company. And we were fortunate to not be as affected by COVID by nature of our critical work, roadways, power, distribution. And I did want to take a minute to thank Commissioner O'Donnell for his service in the Navy. I was invited by Mr. Frank Kelly to become involved with Baltimore Gas Electric Exelon work as a veteran-owned company. And I wanted to comment on Secretary Reed. On Secretary Reed's comment about keeping money in the with our DVE partners. I feel that is a major role of my company right now. In the state and federal projects we're part of, we have DVE partners. And this has made me realize the importance of our relationships and subcontract with those DVE partners to keep that money flowing. I was very moved by Secretary Reed's comments. And that is a big takeaway for me today. I was also very moved by Ms. Joyner Reed's comments and the importance of earmarked capital, specifically capital in the way of loans. I wanted to thank everyone for allowing me to participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dvorak. Last but not least, we have Tony Hill, Managing Partner of Edwards and Hill Office Furniture. Good morning, Mr. Hill.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, and thank you and the commissioners and the utilities and my colleagues as well. Interestingly enough, I had some prepared thoughts that I've changed completely because the story is the same for many of us. Starting with Secretary Ree and those who spoke before me, a lot of the things that I had intended to talk about have already been said. That just goes to show the challenge that we have here. I do want to tell you a little bit of the challenges that I have specifically in my industry as a Black man, as a gay man. I commend you, the commissioners, for including LGBT spend with this. It's very important. There are those things that we sometimes carry that we don't even know we're carrying. And I felt comfortable enough with Frank Kelly from BGE to tell him that I was gay, to find out that BGE and Exelon is very welcoming and don't look at you any differently because of that. We all have inherent biases, and therefore we sometimes don't come forward with those things that we think could cost us business. So let me just talk specifically now about the economy. We have suffered loss of revenue like everybody else. We have less cash reserves, less credit, all those things that are challenging. For us in particular, though, things have slowed down because people are working remotely. I and my staff are working remotely. The only part of my staff that's not working remotely are the installers when we do get the chance to go install furniture, because most people aren't working in the office right now. We're prepared to respond with helping folks to retrofit their offices to be able to have their staff come back to the offices. But then you hear things like Google saying 200,000 of their people don't have to come back till July 2021, if they ever come back. People are learning a different way, so there's a bit of a pivot that's having to happen as well. But I think the big thing we need to look at here, and it's not unlike what everybody else has said, is that we do need to continue to be intentional. We need to be intentional about making sure that folks are included. To the utilities that are on the call, we've got an economic ecosystem here as well. And the folks that use the water, that use the electric, and so on and so forth, that use the gas, those people won't be able to pay for those services if they don't have jobs. And people such as myself, we will generally hire at a higher rate people who look like me. The fact that I am Black, the fact that I am gay, I'm pretty open to anybody who's qualified and wants to do the work. So I've given people those second chances that they might not get someplace else. And I'll give you an idea of the challenges, speaking a little to what Ms. Pender said about the systemic racism and what's going on in the world as a result of the murder of George Floyd. But I recently bid on a project, and this happens to my company often, just to show the disparities. I recently bid on a project, we didn't win, and I oftentimes will ask for a debriefing so we can see how to improve for the next time. And I was told that we were 12.5% higher than the one bidder who won some of the work, and 16.9% higher than another bidder who won some of the work. And we went in the single digits to try to win the work. So if I'm getting prices from my suppliers for furniture that I don't make, we're a furniture dealership, not a manufacturer. If I'm getting prices from them and I go in at single digits to try and win the work, and other companies who are getting the same furniture from the same suppliers can go in 12.5% less than me and 16.9% less than me, how can I compete? So we do need to be very intentional on every level. And I will say in closing, that's one of the great things about companies like a BGE Exelon. I went through their Focus Forward program. It showed us how to do business with the utility. And in addition to that, they will take the time to sit down and listen to find out what are the roadblocks that are keeping you from being able to do business with us. And it speaks to globally what's going on with when we hear the numbers about how many African-American businesses have gone out of business or are likely to go out of business. We are fortunate in that we have some contracts that are ongoing, so that helps us continue going. Cash flow is still a struggle. And we have some work in the hospitality area. So once things reopen, those folks are trying to get back up to speed. So we're doing better than most, but it is still a struggle. So I commend you, the commissioners, everybody, quite frankly, on the call, who are doing what you can to increase the minority spend. And I would say to the utilities that are on the call, everything that you can do to make sure that when you have to buy the services that you're going to buy anyway, that you funnel as much of that via the fair process, of course, to minority businesses. Again, we are the ones who are going to hire people who look like us. We're the ones who are going to hire people who are in those areas where we might get unrest because they have no way out. And again, it really is an ecosystem that if we all play our part, it's better for all of us. So I hope that everybody will take that into account. And thank you for having me on the call.
Thank you, Mr. Hill, for sharing that example and the challenges that some of our minority businesses are now encountering during COVID. I appreciate that. At this point, do commissioners have questions for any of the panelists?
Mr. Chairman, I do.
Commissioner Herman, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning to everybody. I haven't spoken yet, so thank you everybody for attending and providing all of this important information and insight. So, Ms. Weems, I had a question for you, and I understand that access to capital is extremely important, if not the most important opportunity for women and minority-owned businesses. But since our utilities are not able to, are not lending institutions, do you have any suggestions for how the utilities might help out businesses? And since Secretary Ree so poignantly noted that women-owned businesses, minority and non-minority, are really hit hard because they're doing, I heard statistics on the radio the other day about women taking on, more of the household responsibilities and schooling and so on and so forth. So it seems a particularly difficult group. So do you have any suggestions for our utilities of how they can reach out to business owners like you?
I'm actually going to borrow a point from Tony. Nice to meet you, Tony. When RFPs are crafted with the intention of knowing that there is a need, within fair practices, of course, but to understand that demographically, there is a need within the African-American women-owned business space. Can we dictate that whatever opportunity is coming up is specific to that group? Not if, let's say that Tony is 20% higher than someone else, that all of a sudden he's going to be taken out of the out of consideration. How, if we understand that you have companies that are working at a deficit against the ones that they're competing against, but yet these are the companies that need the support, then I do feel like there is an intention and work on behalf of the companies that are putting out the bids to take that into consideration.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to apologize to my fellow commissioners. I don't have the visual cues of seeing your microphones becoming unmuted, so I've stepped on two of you now, and I apologize for that. I just wanted to thank Mr. Dvorak for his military service as well, and just indicate that I think there's an opportunity here on the veterans side of the house to maybe make our veterans community more aware of the opportunities presented in this program. I know last year I spoke about outreach on the part of the signatories, but I also believe there's an obligation for that community to outreach through its veteran service organizations in the state of Maryland to make sure that our veteran community, our service disabled veteran business owners and our veteran business owners are aware of these programs. And I'm an active member of the Department of Maryland American Legion, and this is a kind of a poignant cue for me to make sure that I'm making sure the statewide leadership of our largest veteran service organization in the state is putting out this information to our members. So thank you for that discussion and thanks. And not really a question, but a comment. I think there's some obligation in the community as well to spread the word and make sure people know if they're a business owner and they meet the eligibility requirements that these programs exist. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. At this point, we will transition to hear from our utility reports. But before we do so, I'd just like to make a reminder to the public, for those who wish to file any written comments for the Commission to consider, they may do so via our online portal under docket PC52. And any such comments for consideration must be filed by July 31st of 2020, just a few days from now. At this point, we will hear 16 presentations from our utilities and public service companies. Each company will have up to 5 minutes to make their presentation, and then commissioners may have questions at the conclusion of all 16 presentations. This year, we have a new high water mark. BG&E gets the top prize after dethroning Captain Eric Nielsen and the Association of Maryland Pilots, who has held the pole position for many years now. So I congratulate BGE. And we will, as traditional has it, we start with the highest ranked utility, and we move down from there. So we will begin with Ms. Vernice Lewis, who is the Senior Manager of Diverse Business Empowerment at BGE.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry. Thank you so much, Chairman Stanek, and to the Commission. I appreciate the opportunity to update you on Exelon Diverse Business Empowerment Initiatives, specifically at our progress at BGE, PEPCO, and Delmarva Power. At BGE, last year, we spent $437 million with diverse suppliers, which represented 42% of our total spend. Of that, $217 million were spent with diverse firms that were headquartered in Maryland. As we listened to the presentations earlier today by Commissioner Rhee and by some of our suppliers, Mr. Hill in particular, there are three things that has driven the success of supplier diversity at BGE and across Exelon. It's leadership engagement. It is intentionality about ensuring the inclusion of diverse suppliers, whether that be minority vendors, women-owned vendors, service disabled veteran, or LGBT suppliers. We're very intentional about including those suppliers in our supply chain and ensuring that our supply chain is diversified. And there's also our focus on supplier development. When we talk about leadership engagement, I just want to share that achievements in supplier diversity are not possible without the support of a top-down commitment from our leadership team. So at BGE and across Exelon, from the top down, we have the support of senior management and our board of directors and the commitment of our Exelon and BGE employees to drive diverse supplier spend. So as with all of our key areas of business, BGE senior executives measure our performance against diversity metrics in support of our corporate culture. It is understood that meeting diversity goals is not a one-time event, but it's a continuous and proactive process for us of defining, of measuring, of managing, evaluating, and rewarding suppliers and awarding our process. We promote supplier diversity through a broad network of supplier diversity business advocates, which is a group of director and manager level employees who are assigned by their respective vice presidents to expand supplier diversity within their respective lines of business. We have regular meetings with those groups, and these employees set diversity goals, develop strategies, share best practices, and monitor progress toward continuous improvement of our supplier diversity results. Another key element to the success of supplier diversity at BGE is directly correlated to our commitment to diverse supplier development and our diverse supplier development program, led by Frank Kelly, who is our manager of diverse business empowerment at BGE. Our company has long recognized that diverse supplier performance can be enhanced through effective supplier development programs. The purpose of these developmental initiatives is to improve supplier capacity and enable diversity certified suppliers to advance in an increasingly rigorous sourcing environment. The participants are exposed to concepts in field safety, just-in-time delivery, lowering costs, and other best practices that foster business growth, through innovation. In September 2019, BGE launched the 5th class of its nationally recognized Focus Forward Academy, which is formerly known as the Focus 25 program. This supplier development program in support of diverse supplier inclusion goals of the Maryland Public Service Commission. And the purpose of the program was to provide a select group of diversity certified suppliers with the tools and knowledge that they need to gain access and to grow along with BGE. The program focused on mentorship, technical assistance workshops, highlighting business development processes, safety policies, and also the nuances of the BGE sourcing process. To date, we've had more than 52 minority, women, and veteran-owned companies, many who are located in the Maryland area, participated in the program, and also who are better equipped as a result of that program to get contracts with BGE. From a standpoint of the inclusion of veteran and LGBT businesses, we continue to recognize the value that these businesses bring to our supply chain. At the end of 2019, the start of 2020, we did become national members of the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, the NGLCC, which would give us an opportunity and a more vast plethora of LGBT businesses that we would have opportunity to source to and to partner with. A few weeks ago, last week as a matter of fact, we also held our first virtual Focus Forward Academy, and we partnered with an LGBT certified company to provide that service and to help us execute that program. We continue to engage and assist prime suppliers in order to increase subcontracting opportunities for diverse businesses, including those that are veteran and LGBT. We also continue our partnership with Dvorak Electric, whom you heard from earlier today, who is a local certified veteran-owned business that specializes in the performance of heavy electrical construction projects and commercial electrical construction, maintenance services, and general contracting. So BGE, we continue to help promote diversity, equity, and inclusion through the employment and enhance the state of economically challenged communities through these programs and processes that we put in place. So we continue to strive for the inclusion of diverse suppliers and continue to partner with those businesses as well.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. Congratulations again for taking the top prize this year. We'll see you again shortly.
Yes.
Pepco and Delmarva.
Yes, sir.
We'll now turn to Captain Eric Nielsen, President of the Association of Maryland Pilots. Ahoy.
Good morning, everybody. Jim McGee will make our presentation.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. James McGee with the Law Office of Robert R. Castro, representing the Association of Maryland Pilots. And as you see with me today is Captain Eric Nielsen, President of the Association of Maryland Pilots, who is disappointed that he's been dethroned as the king of diverse suppliers. The pilots are pleased that they have exceeded the 25% aspirational goal again in 2019, achieving 40.77% of their eligible spend with diverse suppliers. And in terms of your agenda and the new categories, the pilots did look for such suppliers, but did not have any of those in 2019. However, so far in 2020, they were able to contract with a veteran-owned business, so that will be reflected in next year's report. Regarding COVID-19, obviously it's a very sad and scary and challenging situation, and the pilots certainly expressed their sympathies with those affected, both medically and financially. The pilots in the shipping industry as a whole have been affected, like the rest of the state and country. However, as it relates to the diverse supplier program, like all new spending, which no one really ever wants to do, but comes opportunities to spend with diverse suppliers. So the pilots did look for diverse suppliers for PPE masks, but unfortunately were unable to contract with any when they needed them. However, they did find diverse suppliers that were able to provide high quality sanitation and cleaning services for their building and ships and other items related to a proper response to COVID-19. And so I raised that because I think it's an example of the pilot's mindset after this program has started. When there are new expenses to be incurred, let's find a diverse supplier that can find it and provide competitive bids for those products or services and contract with them. So with that, Captain Nielsen and I are available to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. McGee, and congratulations on the silver prize. Next, we'll turn back to Ms. Lewis, who will now represent Pepco.
Good morning. Good morning again. So in 2019, PepCo spent a total of $222 million with diverse suppliers, which represented nearly 37% of our total spend. Of that, about $44 million was spent with diverse firms that were headquartered in Maryland. Just as with BGE, being a part of the Exelon family of companies, having that intentionality about the inclusion of diverse firms, having leadership engagement and supplier development is all critical to the success of supplier diversity. So at PepCo, led by our CEO, Dave Velasquez, our corporate leadership team is very engaged in our supplier diversity process, very aware of the process and really vocal in driving the process down into the organization. We also spend a lot of time focusing on the metrics at PepCo and benchmarking, making sure understanding where we measure up to the other organizations, the other parts of Exelon as it relates to supplier diversity, and gleaning best practices from BGE and ComEd, other organizations, other utilities that are part of the Exelon family of companies. We also are very focused from a benchmarking standpoint in being active in the $1 Billion Roundtable, also the National Minority Supply Development Council affiliates, the Women's Business Enterprise Council affiliates, the NMSDC Utility Industry Group, and the Maryland Utility Forum as well. We also enhanced our supplier diversity process through supplier development. So we did not have a Target 25 supplier development class last year. What we did was that we continued to focus on supplier development by challenging and engaging our prime suppliers. And working with them last year to have workshops that we call a Tier 2 Institute, where we met with them and sat down with them and we went over a process with them about how they could do more to engage diverse suppliers as subcontractors. And we continue to work with those firms that participated in the first PepCo Target 25, which is the PepCo iteration of the BGE Focus Forward program. We continue to work with suppliers who graduated from that initiative to help them and grow them and enhance them last year. So overall, it was a good year for PepCo. From a diversity veteran standpoint, we do continue to work with diverse firms in the service territory in our region. PepCo works very closely with B. Frank Joy, who's a veteran-owned business who manages installation, maintenance, and underground infrastructure construction services. And PepCo also, as a part of their overall Exelon family of companies, has access to the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce and their list of certified diverse businesses. So we continue to utilize the best practices that have been successful across the Exelon organization to grow the PepCo diversity program as well.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. We'll now hear from a representative from the Potomac Edison Company, Mr. Donald McGettigan, Director of Operations Services.
Valerie's going to bring up a quick presentation that we have.
I am doing that.
All right, good morning, commissioners. If we can go to the first slide, Valerie. So Potomac Edison's happy to report that we again met the aspirational goal, 25%. As you can see on the chart, we ended the year at about 33.44%. Overall, our diversity spend increased in 2019 by 7.48%. And I'm happy to report that through our June reporting, we are on track to meet the goal. We're at 28.27% through June of this year. You can go to the next slide, Valerie, please. So diversity inclusion is a core value at First Energy, and it's recognized in all aspects of our business. And from our CEO, Chuck Jones, that as we work to make our supplier base as diverse as our customer base is what our goal is. And Potomac Edison continues to strive and increase the economic growth of development within the Maryland footprint. And the next slide, I'll go into a little bit more detail with that. So, if you look at the first bullet point, Potomac Edison successfully worked with including diverse suppliers on our reliability rider program, the electric distribution investment surcharge that we started in 2019, or EDIS, as most of us refer to it as. So in 2019, 78% of the contractor spend with that program was with diverse suppliers. 66% of that was with Black-owned businesses, and 12% was with women-owned businesses. And the vast majority, if not all of it, was with Maryland-owned businesses as well. Potomac Edison is committed to not only add new suppliers, but to try to grow our existing local suppliers. So we've been working with the 2 African-American contractors that we use in the underground boring and trenching work to try to improve the capabilities with those companies and continue to work with them. And it seems to be working very well. One of those companies is based in our service territory, and one is a little bit outside of our service territory, but both are Maryland companies. With that, I'll turn it over to Valerie, who's going to cover a couple of supply chain specific actions that we're doing related to COVID.
Thank you. Potomac Edison and supply chain, we do continuously work together to ensure inclusion of new and existing suppliers on all of our RFPs. We also encourage partnerships and collaboration between our primes and diverse suppliers to provide additional opportunities. That is something we're very focused on this year, is challenging our primes and encouraging them to bring on diverse suppliers to do their subcontracting work. Especially during these trying times, we're stressing that we would really like them to do that wherever possible. COVID-19 has impacted everyone, with many small diverse suppliers significantly impacted. First Energy as a company continues to work with diverse suppliers who may be experiencing cash flow issues by changing payment terms or expediting payment to suppliers. This is something we've always this year, given the challenges that everyone is experiencing. Additionally, Potomac Edison has continued to bring on new suppliers during this pandemic, and they work diligently to ensure we are supporting our new and existing suppliers, as well as the communities we serve. As many outreach events have been canceled or postponed this year, First Energy and Potomac Edison have been involved with attending virtual events. So there are still opportunities for us to meet with new diverse suppliers. The supplier diversity team conducts comprehensive outreach that includes regional, local, and national diverse business and advocacy organizations. We actively work with the MWMCA, WeBank, WIPO, NMSDC, and other groups, the LGBT groups as well, in order to identify business owners with qualities needed to support our work requirements. We also participate in Maryland outreach events to expand our diverse supplier base. We've also just received approval for this year to start a supplier mentoring program where we'll be looking to develop suppliers in each of our service territories across our region. So it's something we're very excited about, and we're looking to kick that off this year and then actively start growing that program. As I mentioned, we participate with advocacy organizations listed here. We've been listed as a military-friendly employer. We also received the 2019 East Regional Corporation Done Deals Award. So we are very active in doing what we can to work with diverse suppliers, especially during these challenging times, and looking to see how we can grow businesses, not only through us, but having our prime suppliers grow their business through diverse suppliers as well. And with that, if there are any questions.
Thank you to the Potomac Edison team for that presentation. We'll now move to 18, Ms. Latara Harris, for State Legislative and Regulatory Affairs.
Hi, good morning, Commissioner. Can you all hear me okay?
We can.
Fantastic. Well, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission and staff, thank you so much for this opportunity. I tell you, it's been a moving morning. I think this, again, having just the most unique set of circumstances for us to come together and hearing these incredible stories and data and information. And you all as commissioners are to absolutely be applauded for the tremendous work that you continue to do, because we know what we monitor gets measured. And again, AT&T is proud to be here speaking with you today. So as I mentioned, my name is Latara Harris, and I'm the Regional Director for External Affairs in Maryland, and I'm pleased to be here. At AT&T, we are extremely proud of our supplier diversity program and our efforts to support the economic advancement of diverse companies and local communities. We eagerly accept our leadership position and our responsibility to foster diversity within our corporate supply chain. Our work with minority, women, service-disabled veteran, and LGBTQ-owned businesses is embedded in our company's core values, because we know diverse businesses bring innovative ideas and play a critical role in serving our customers. AT&T will continue to innovate to ensure we meet the needs of our suppliers, customers, and AT&T's global supply chain. The Commission staff has shared our 2019 results for our annual filing, and I've shared these results year after year with you all. And this year, the results show that AT&T exceeded the Commission's 25% goal again this year. I would like to add that we have also continued to exceed AT&T's corporate goal of 21.5% of our total procurements. In fact, last year, we reported 24.6% spend corporate-wide, which represented $14.2 billion. During last year's hearing, I shared that AT&T expanded its diverse business categories to track our spend with veteran-owned businesses and firms certified by LGBTQ. We are pleased to report that since last year, we have identified and engaged firms from each of those categories. We actively engage our supplier diversity team to focus increased efforts to identify, vet, and refer businesses from these categories. And we anticipate that our progress to identify additional spend within these categories will increase this year. Many of you know our very own Stephanie Bates, that's on the front line doing a lot of this work for AT&T right here in Maryland. Our local outreach initiatives to support events and activities in Maryland, region-based organizations and supplier groups continued in 2019 by participating in forums, conferences, and briefings to share information that diverse businesses should know about doing business with AT&T. An example of those organizations are our very own was on the presentation earlier today, did a fantastic job. Capital Region Minority Supplier Development Council, our very own Sharon Pender, Women Presidents Education Organization, DC, Maryland, Washington Minority Companies, National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, the U.S. Black Chamber of Commerce. In addition to supporting these organizations, we participated in their business exchanges, conferences, and networking activities. We referred Maryland-based diverse businesses to our Tier 1 suppliers to support a myriad of AT&T contracts and projects. These efforts allow for smaller diverse businesses to have subcontracting opportunities. We are asking our Tier 1 suppliers to not only commit to subcontract with diverse suppliers, but also report to us the number of jobs held by diverse individuals within their companies. We are extending the value chain of diversity with our efforts. Finally, I would be remiss not to address the challenges we are all facing in the current social and business environment. Many businesses have been hard hit, as we have heard all too well on this call today, by the COVID-19 pandemic. While they're launching a variety of reopening plans, coming up with required fees for certifications and recertification as minority-owned and women-owned businesses is proving difficult for some. The certification process is a key step that diverse businesses must take to work with corporations and other businesses seeking diversity in their supplier relationships. AT&T Supplier Diversity announced last month that we will provide financial support to local chapters of the National Minority Supplier Development Council and Women Business Enterprise National Council. The chapters will use these funds to help minority-owned and women-owned businesses impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic to cover certification expenses. And that in turn will help strengthen local communities and other businesses. AT&T's investment is $100,000. I'm pleased to share that Capital Region Minority Supplier Development Council and the Women President Education Organization, DC, are recipients of a portion of those funds, as mentioned by Sharon Pender of CRMSDC earlier today. Additionally, we reconfirmed our 2019 commitment to spend $3 billion nationally with Black-owned businesses by the end of 2020. We are well on our way to reaching that goal. We know that the efforts alone will not address the challenges facing small and diverse businesses today, but AT&T stands firm in its commitment to make a meaningful, positive impact on the diverse business community. In conclusion, I would like to thank you, Commissioner. I'd like to end the entire commission for your work to engage diverse businesses in the state of Maryland. We share your commitment and we appreciate the time given today. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Your work we'll return to Lewis for this time representing the Delmarva Power and Light Company.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So in 2019, DPL, as utilities, spent more than $73 million with diverse suppliers, which represented nearly 25% of our total spend. Of that, $8.5 million or 8% of those dollars were spent with diverse firms headquartered in Maryland. Just as with BGE and PepCo, Delmarva's executive team continues to help drive the supplier diversity within the organization. Our executive team is very much engaged with our diverse business empowerment initiatives, and our utility has supplier diversity measures that are just as relevant and rigorous and extensive as our measurements for financial viability, safety, and customer service. Our executive team meets regularly with representatives from our diverse business empowerment team and our sourcing teams to review supplier diversity metrics and progress toward goal, and to discuss strategies to grow our diverse supplier expenditures in partnership with diverse suppliers. We continue to rely on our widespread involvement and support of our employees to achieve our supplier diversity goals. We have a supplier diversity subcommittee as part of PHI. That's our overarching diversity and inclusion council. In partnership with the DPL Office of Diverse Business Empowerment, which is now led by Kelly Huron from our organization, our subcommittee implemented a strategy that was aimed at creating greater awareness throughout the organization about supplier diversity and the importance of diverse supplier participation. Additionally, we continue to focus on metrics and benchmarking within our organization, as well as metrics provided from the National Minority Supplier Development Council affiliates, from our Maryland Utility Forum, and from the National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners, from NARUC. As part of our supplier development initiatives, which is also a key element to driving supplier diversity at DPL, we also focused on opportunities for diversity certified suppliers to work as prime contractors and subcontractors. So we held what's called a Tier 2 Institute last year, and we brought in our large non-diverse suppliers. And we also brought in a group of diverse subcontractors who could possibly service them as subcontractors. And we went through a seminar actually, to talk about the importance of diverse supplier participation and how those non-diverse primes could best optimize the use of diverse subcontractors. We also continue to mentor and work with the suppliers who graduated from the inaugural DPL Target 25 program. Additionally, as we've mentioned before, we continue to recognize the importance of LGBTQ and veteran businesses and what they bring to our supply chain. So as we mentioned before, having access to the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce, being national members, that gives us another avenue to identify certified diverse firms for participation to do business with us, whom we can include in our supply chain. Additionally, we continue to partner with our external organizations like the Capital Region Minority Supplier Development Council, the Women's Business Center there, to form technical assistance and capacity building initiatives, such as the Target 25 programs and other local programs as well. So thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you again, Ms. Lewis. We next turn to a representative from Comcast. We'll have with us John Conwell, Senior Director of Regulatory Affairs.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. I'm privileged to represent at this year's Supplier Diversity Public Conference and address your questions about our annual submission. For nearly a decade, Comcast's uniquely designed supplier diversity program has focused on direct business-to-business outreach and partnership with advocacy organizations that help build capacity for and make connections with diverse suppliers. Comcast Supplier Diversity Program is designed to promote, increase, and improve the participation of diverse businesses within our corporate supply chain, including companies owned by women, people of color, veterans, individuals with disabilities, and lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer individuals. Comcast CEO Brian Roberts announced in early June that Comcast is developing a comprehensive multi-year plan to allocate $100 million to fight injustice and inequality against any race, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual orientation, or ability. There will be $75 million in cash, $25 million in media that will be distributed over the next 3 years, and that's in addition to our existing commitments that we make to thousands of organizations supporting underrepresented through our foundation and social impact programs. A part of those funds will go to help small businesses that have been affected by extensive closures in the wake of the COVID-19 situation, allocating a substantial portion of those funds to businesses owned by people of color. Comcast, of course, is a member of the $1 Billion Roundtable. This year we have an officer who's on the board of directors. We do a number of outreaches to the organizations that you've heard many companies respond to. Turning to Maryland specifically, we voluntarily entered the Memorandum of Understanding in 2011. We filed annual reports every year for the past 9 years. And in 2019, I believe we're ranked 7th in the staff report, just shy of the 25% goal. We don't like that we missed it, but we will continue to work harder to make that happen. Again, we really do appreciate being invited to this conference and to address.
Thank you, Mr. Conwell. Yeah, just squeaked by the skin of your teeth, 24.48%. Not far behind you, you have Washington Gas at 23.6%. And we'll hear from a representative from Washington Gas Light Company, Mr. Victor Davis, Senior Supplier Diversity Specialist. Mr. Davis, I believe you're on mute.
Apologies. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner, support staff, and community. For Washington Gas, the business strategy of procuring goods and services from diverse suppliers is critical to delivering first-in-class service. Diversifying our supply chain supports the competitive process and produces competition in the marketplace and benefits customers, the community, and employees. The commitment extends company-wide, incorporating annual supplier diversity goals in our newly formed value driver structure. Executives are responsible for their respective business unit outcomes as results are shared with board of directors, external stakeholders, and employees. Our practices include meeting annually and monthly with executives and direct staff to discuss initiative awareness, goal setting, and policy changes to enhance the overall status of the program. We engage with strategic partners to stay abreast of concerns and new industry practices. We provide procurement technical assistance and serve as thought leadership on diverse vendor engagement. Networking, stakeholder engagement, and dialogue sharing is a critical component of outreach strategy. Listed here is just a small sample of the many highly visible events supported by executives and staff this year. To add, strategic partnerships with advocacy groups and affiliates continues to strengthen our ability to engage with diverse suppliers, promote programming, and exchange industry best practices. During the past year, we hosted listening sessions and lunch and learn gatherings to glean feedback from key industry partners. And now, I'd like to provide a few updates on our merger commitments. First, the Strive for 35 program that includes our aspirational goal to spend 35% of non-gas dollars with diverse suppliers by 2028. We are pleased to report completion of Phase 1. This included increasing our number of contracted prime and Tier 2 diverse suppliers by 16.9%. We've also reported $267 million in diverse spend. I recall earlier the conversation touched on working capital and how best utilities can support these efforts for small businesses. Well, I'm pleased to announce, in partnership with parent company AltaGas and strategic partner Prince George's Financial Services Corporation First, we launched the Strive for 35 Fund, a merger commitment of $100,000 annual contribution over 5 years, totaling $500,000. The scope of the fund is to serve as a financial tool to diverse Maryland-based suppliers in the natural gas industry. The program is in its infancy, and due to COVID-19, there have been some slight delays. However, in the next annual report, we expect to include metrics highlighting new loans added, new loans settled, new job creation, new referrals, and our communication and outreach efforts with the SBA and other key stakeholders. We now direct our efforts to completing Phase 2 and commencing Phase 3. We expect to finalize implementation of forecasting tools to better identify and communicate new sourcing opportunities. We relaunched the Business Unit Liaison Program to promote supplier diversity initiatives and practices. Additionally, we recognize to successfully align supplier diversity as a value in our business practices, it requires executive support. To do this, we are activating the Supplier Diversity Executive Council to ensure leadership, buy-in, support, and issue resolution. We will continue to explore opportunities in expanding advocacy memberships to VBE and LGBT advocacy groups, as well as exploring ways on how to increase spend with those groups. Further, in Phase 3, we plan to introduce a supplier diversity program with a focus to grow minority-led firms in the natural gas industry. And like our peers, we are addressing COVID-19 as well. Corporate-wide, we are focusing on the effects on small businesses and the communities we serve. Our immediate action included the support of small nonprofit 501c3 organizations with donations at minimum of $1,000 to $500,000. While we have yet to capture the impact of our contributions, we assess that funds will indirectly support current and prospective diverse suppliers. For sourcing needs, briefings are provided regularly to internal customers highlighting available PPE goods and services in order to comply with safety prevention goals. Currently, we are monitoring data with a focus on the effects of COVID-19 on diverse spend and will include our results in next year's annual report. And now for our 2019 achievements. In the initial annual report filing, we met goal at 25.5%. However, in April of this year, it was brought to our attention that a service provider had undergone a change in ownership, modifying their classification from diverse to non-diverse. Proactively, all vested parties were notified, including the Commission Liaison and Washington Gas OGC, with both parties concluding to refile the annual report in addition to filing an annual plan for calendar year 2020, as required by the Maryland Utility Forum MOU. This adjustment caused a reduction of $10.1 million in diverse spend, decreasing our non-gas diverse total to 23.68%. We are determined to prevent similar occurrences and have proposed short and long-term process improvements. First, adjusting our vendor verification provisions. This will improve our ability to track the status of diversity certifications. We've proposed to internal groups to include a change in ownership net 10 notification requirement in future terms and conditions. And we've also recommended that suppliers declassifying from diverse to non-diverse be required to submit a subcontracting plan. This is in line with current terms for non-diverse primes. We are proud of the strides we made thus far and acknowledge there are still challenges ahead. With additional resources and support from parent company AltaGas, we accept the task and expect to see favorable outcomes of the changes proposed in this presentation and the annual plan in next year's report. And with that, I welcome any questions you may have.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Davis and the WGL team. We're going to hold all questions to the end, but we appreciate your continued efforts as well as the presentation that you prepared for us today. Next, we'll turn to the Southern Maryland Electric Cooperative, and we have with us Ken Capps, who is the Senior Vice President and Operating Officer. Good morning, good afternoon, Mr. Capps. Mr. Capps, we may have trouble with your microphone. We can't hear you. I see we have Miss Nutter with us.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me fine?
We could hear you fine. If this is acceptable, why don't we skip you and come back in a few minutes to Smecco? So we'll move on to CenturyLink, where we'll hear from Jay Wesley, Global Corporate Supplier Diversity Office. Mr. Wesley.
I was just trying to hit that mute button.
There you go. We hear you loud and clear.
Well, good morning, commissioners, chairman, and my colleagues. Thank you for allowing CenturyLink to present. I'm going to scoot back to last year when I spoke before this committee and talking about what CenturyLink was going to do in the next upcoming year. We submitted our report on time. One of the things that we had an increase in spend of about 12 million, but unfortunately that didn't go to diverse businesses. So our percentage went down from 22 to 12, but the actual spend stayed flat. Okay, what I committed last year was that I was going to develop suppliers in the Maryland region to support our enterprise procurements. So one of the things I want to talk a little bit about that last year we did about 3 million in diverse businesses. Through the first 2 quarters of this year, we're trending at about 22 million. So it's up. And some of the things that we've been putting in place, it's starting to pay off. With CenturyLink, as I told you, I've only been there 17 months, and I've been revamping and building the program. And we have a national program. We have a national program, so when we develop our program across the United States, and especially within states, one of the things that we're trying to do is make sure that Maryland suppliers are in our bidding process. So basically it's a set aside almost that we're looking for Maryland companies to bid on our enterprise wide. We did have a few direct construction business construction projects, but again, it didn't lend itself to small businesses at that time. Hang on one second. I've just so in submitting my report, for the commissioners to review, we submitted that report early. We went into a lot more detail on what we're actually doing. And I think you're going to see the results in 2020 because, again, in 2018, we didn't report. 2019, we did report. In 2020, we reported. So this is where CenturyLink is standing right now. To give you an idea also, that we increased our spend, because one of the things I mentioned to the commission last year, that was our first full year of benchmarking as a result of our merger. So at the end of last year, we were able to benchmark now where we're going and where we could improve in. So last year's overall, from a national perspective, our spend increased in diverse businesses by 50%. And we increased substantially in all categories. So based on that report, do you have any concerns about CenturyLink? And as I said to you last year, that it was going to take a couple of years to build the program up to where we were meeting the aspirational 25% on a consistent basis.
Well, Thank you very much. We appreciate CenturyLink coming back into the fold after departing for a few years. We appreciate your continued commitment, and obviously your numbers were good this year, middle of the pack. The commissioners may have some questions for you towards the end. We'll get a phone number for the folks at SMECO. If when you're ready, we could provide a number and you could call in to us.
If it's okay, Ken Capps gives his apologies. He is having definite technical difficulty with his audio. So ask me to go ahead and take the floor, if that will be okay, unless you'd rather we wait.
No, Ms. Nutter, if you're available to present, please do.
Okay, thank you. So I'm assuming you can hear me okay.
Very well.
Thank you very much. Well, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. SMECO is very proud of our progress to date. We continue to improve our diverse spend percentage year after year, rounding out with 18% for 2019. With the addition of the 2 new classifications of veteran and LGBTQ, SMECO was able to count additional spend, thus capturing 7.6% veteran spend with 3.8% in the service disabled category. We have recently begun a cleansing of our registered veteran businesses to verify if they may also be classified as service disabled. We've had many veteran businesses registered in our vendor portal for years that SMECO has done business with, but with the new veteran classification, we were able to count them. So we are going to go back and revisit those classifications to make sure we have everybody in the right classifications. SMECO also joined the Maryland LGTB Chamber of Commerce. We were very proud because we became the first Maryland utility to do so. We've had the opportunity to attend one of their signature meet and greet events in Baltimore, and we plan to continue to do so. 2020 is proving to be very interesting. SMECO's first quarter for diverse spend was 34.9%. Q2 may be as low as 16%. A few of the obstacles that we have encountered so far are the cancellation of diversity events. These events give us, SMECO, opportunities to meet and engage with a large volume of vendors at one time. SMECO had also planned a partnership with 2 of our diverse organizations that we're members with to host an on-site How to Do Business with SMECO event. But those plans had to be stalled and will not take place until 2021. If we cannot do it on site, we will plan to do it virtually. Steps we are taking to overcome these obstacles: schedule and conduct conference and Zoom calls for introductions of new vendors to our buyers. As we engage with new vendors, we have them register in our vendor portal, and then we begin the meet and greet process with our internal buyers. We have been attending online events that have moved to an online forum, and we will continue to engage with those diverse organizations. I am also in the process of scheduling a guest podcast interview with the Calvert County Minority Business Association on how to do business with SMECO. The SMECO procurement team remains committed to engage with internal buyers while following all diversity protocols. A few awards for 2020 that I'd like to take note to date has been over $3 million, 2 with women-owned and 3 with minority-owned. Those are opportunities that have arisen due to upgrades and building of substations for SMECO. In addition, when the pandemic spend began, SMECO made a concerted effort, such as face masks, hand sanitizer, and signs that we are utilizing to engage with diverse-owned businesses. We were successful because we found a lot of the small diverse-owned businesses actually had the availability of supplies where very large companies did not. Overall, SMECO will continue to increase our efforts with our diverse spend, and I thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Ms. Snutter, and thank you for pinch hitting on the fly for Mr. So we appreciate it.
Thank you. Not a problem.
We'll now move to the representative from Elkton Gas, Beth Klaus, who is the Supplier Diversity Specialist. Good morning, Ms. Klaus.
Good morning. Can everyone hear me?
We can.
Great. So good afternoon. On behalf of SGI and its subsidiaries, I thank you for having us in attendance today. So SGI acquired Elkton Gas on July 1st, 2018. The company was and will be in our hands until August 1st, 2020. Elkton has submitted the diverse spend reports for fiscal year 2019 as legal record and as part of the company filings for this divestment. We also continue to report the diverse spend for the current fiscal year up to the third quarter of 2020. The Elkton financial system came online August 2019 for us. Prior to that, we were unable to determine basic or in-depth financial information for the company. We implemented a new financial system that provides more spend visibility that allows us to identify new opportunities. So in an effort to increase the development of furthering diverse spend, we're looking to include a potential bid for a new pipeline contract to attract new suppliers in order to generate a higher level of bidding potential there. By opening the bidding to include a variety of potential suppliers, we continue to drive the effort to increase growth and innovation for diverse suppliers within the communities we serve there. So the obstacles that continue to be addressed are the potential for inclusion of RFPs into business opportunities based on the amount of spend projections for Elkton. Previously, the diversity spend and reporting estimates that were provided for the initial transition agreed that 25% of spend would be with diverse businesses. Based on the size of the company, we believe that was an overestimate without any data to fully support that decision, as Elkton has very little spend and previously reported a maximum of 19.7% diverse spend in 2019 in total, which included its largest diverse supplier contract at that time. To be able to increase not just the diverse spend, but the overall company spend within those parameters, it would be difficult to establish that percentage. Without that diverse supplier for the major pipeline project to contribute to the diversity spend reporting, the percentage is in reality much lower. Effectively creating space for inclusion of diverse suppliers is not a question of resources, but of available opportunity at that point. As stated previously, we continue to work toward creating those opportunities for Elkton throughout its various categories. Moving forward, we aim to reevaluate the total procurement spend and reassess the potential diverse spend based on opportunity that exists within the company. There is one area of diverse spend that I mentioned that was utilized that included a woman-owned business for pipeline replacement. Every year, Elkton replaces 1 mile of pipe locally. This was previously done by a diverse vendor, but unfortunately, they were not invited back and the contract was not continued in 2019. So sourcing for a new diverse vendor for that project is ongoing and is being determined by procurement to include another diverse supplier into that bidding opportunity. There's also a need for new vehicles for service and maintenance for Elkton. We are working to include a diverse company to be considered for the bid there as well. By working through the current issues, we're using them as opportunities to work on our growth strategy by practicing inclusion within the construction and fleet categories for Elkton and where the opportunities do exist. So a full-time supplier diversity advocate, myself, was hired to focus on increasing diverse spend for SGI and its holdings. Driving this initiative will provide additional potential to increase diverse spend overall. Opportunity to build a diversity program does take time, though we have been working on moving forward with our diversity program and goals, but we're not able to implement those efforts at that time, unfortunately. Due to the current pandemic that is affecting not just Elkton, but the world and many communities, there has been a delay in opportunities to increase diverse spend within the company. However, we do continue to participate in developing new and managing existing relationships with diverse suppliers to initiate discussions of our continued efforts for expansion of supplier resources for diverse companies and to source diverse suppliers for open opportunities in regards to Elkton specifically. We will evaluate the progress of this initiative, both through tracking and reporting of metrics and ongoing communication with and inclusion of diverse suppliers across the business. Thank you.
Thank you for your report, Ms. Klaus from SGI and Elkton. We have 5 more utility reports to go. We'll turn next to Columbia Gas of Maryland. We have Derek Hamilton, Supplier Diversity Manager. Good morning, good afternoon, Mr. Hamilton.
Good afternoon. All right. So, Amy, are you going to kick it off here?
Good morning. My name is Amy Harakis. I'm Regulatory Counsel for Columbia Gas of Maryland. And due to time, Derek, I think it's good if you just go on and give our presentation.
All right. All right. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to be in front of you today. Basically going to go over answering those questions and the theme of the hearing, but just wanted to start off with NiSource being the parent company of Columbia Gas has really seen some growth in supplier diversity. And one of the things of note is that our program has grown 19% over the past 4 years. So we continue to see growth and we continue to grow in that way. And we've actually achieved over $1 billion in the last 4 years. So we're in a growth mode, so we're excited about that. And then how it relates to Maryland and Columbia Gas and Maryland is that basically some of the things we took away from your recommendations last year is we've incorporated LGBT suppliers into our overall strategy, which means that we've updated our technology so that we can receive their information, we can track and report on it. And then we also had a event scheduled that we partnered with the NGLCC to work with our company to kind of, I guess, launch the LGBT initiative. So due to COVID, that was rescheduled. We're looking to possibly do that virtually and working with our LGBT ERG group as well. But, we're excited about that. I worked with Jonathan Lovitz. He was actually going to come and do the LGBT business case for doing work with those suppliers in that space. So we're still excited about that. We're going to get that launched this year, but we're basically taking steps to make sure that that's included. Some of the other things that we've done to make progress from last year is that we've added another veteran-owned supplier to our supply base. We've actually utilized the SDVOB, Elite SDVOB's database to try to identify new suppliers. So in 2020, we've also added another veteran-owned supplier. So we're excited that we're making progress in that area. So you'll see that hopefully in the 2020 report. Some of the obstacles we continue to see is really just around the location. Being in Western Maryland it's been a challenge for us just because a lot of the work we have is really in our capital side, in our STRIDE program. And it's based on, the pipeline construction and the ancillary services of that. So a lot of the suppliers who are rich in that area, of course, in the Baltimore, Maryland area, becomes a little bit of a challenge to get them up to Western Maryland to actually do that work. However, we've continued to go down that path. We continue to have more targeted, focused conversations to improve there. And, one of the things that we've done is we've actually set aside dollars for diverse suppliers last year for 2019 or projects. I'll say we set aside projects specifically for those, trying to find diverse suppliers to fulfill those projects. And we actually have one supplier that fulfilled the majority of that project, but we got a late start because one of the other suppliers we were in contract negotiations with kind of fell through. So we've been able to increase in that area, however, due to bringing on a new supplier in that space for 2020. So like I said, the thing for us is to continue to grow as we move along. So, and then what actions are we doing to improve our performance? A couple of things. We continue to utilize the forum members, specifically those companies that do extremely well and meet that 25% goal, which is our aspiration. We work with the advocacy partners there. And then one of the things we're going to do for 2021 is we know that we have a challenge from a tier 1 standpoint, but we also want to work at a tier 2 standpoint with our current contractors. So in 2021, our goal is to have actual contractual goals in their contract for them to help us meet our goal in Maryland as well. And for us, that's a big step. You know, a lot of stuff has been voluntary, but I think, you know, our focus is really on trying to meet our 25% goal, but also growing our spend across NiSource. So those contractual goals will be with many of our construction contractors across all of our states, but specifically Maryland, kind of launch that because we know that we're going to have some partnership from our suppliers to get there. Some of the other things from a COVID standpoint, you know, the impacts are still being, you know, kind of evaluated as we go through this. One of our suppliers did have an issue with capacity. So, you know, we're finding ourselves having to work with our suppliers, kind of work through the capacity issues. Our company overall has decreased our capital budget as a result of COVID and the amount of time that we've lost in regards to getting suppliers on site. But one of the things I want to say is that we're excited about, we found other avenues that, you know, other markets that are emerging as, you know, COVID has come through, and two of those markets are, of course, PPE, but I think the other one is virtual, you know, having suppliers do virtual events for you. So we've spent some time working on, you know, we had an event scheduled this year to do kind of a how to do business with Columbia, and that has been postponed, but now we're looking at doing a virtual environment and partnering with other utilities to get that done. So although, you know, COVID has been very stressful and it caused issues, I think we've been able to find some opportunities in spaces that we probably wouldn't be as focused on if not for COVID. So that is all I have for you ladies and gentlemen today. Look forward to any questions at the end.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Hamilton. Good to see you again, and appreciate your continued commitment on this count. Next, we have Verizon, and we're joined by Douglas Smith, Vice President for State Government Affairs.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. On behalf of Verizon, my name is Doug Smith, Vice President, State Government Affairs, and I'm pleased to join you today as part of the consortium of companies that have pledged their commitment to supplier diversity in Maryland. Verizon is proud to have been part of this program since the very beginning. As most of you are aware, Verizon has an organization devoted exclusively to identifying, attracting, retaining, and tracking diverse suppliers. It is also the Maryland Commission's focus on supplier diversity and Verizon's participation in the Maryland Utility Forum that results in the energy and the sharing of best practices that helps our efforts to improve results. In addition, our senior leadership team, or C-suite, across our various business units are given annual diverse supplier targets to attain. These targets receive the highest priority. Our results for 2019 were positive, but not where we want them to be. I'd like to share some of the challenges from last year and plans for this year. Verizon is proud to continue to be one of the largest diverse spending utility companies in Maryland. In 2019, Verizon invested nearly $50 million with diverse suppliers in the state. That places Verizon as the 6th largest spend of the 16 companies reporting results for last year. Of interest, this spend was accomplished at a time in our company's evolution, which resulted in a decrease in our regulated business as we continue to witness the rapid disconnection of copper landline facilities as customers find alternatives that include competitive carriers and wireless phones. Our regulated access lines have dropped 74% over the last 10 years. And 52% in just the last 5 years in Maryland, and it's expected to continue with that trend. So this trend points to just one of our challenges in attaining the 25% aspirational goal for diverse vendor spend, which continues to be our focus. So to succeed in driving our diverse spend results, we believe in communicating with our supplier populations. We use various programs and opportunities to meet, discuss, seek partnerships, and identify a match of theirs with Verizon's needs in the business. As we work through the new normal in a COVID-19 world, there needs to be a new approach to identifying and certifying new diverse suppliers. Accordingly, in the first half of this year, Verizon's supplier diversity team participated in 2 virtual matchmaking sessions to make valuable business connections, and we're planning 2 more throughout the rest of the year. As we focus on the category of LGBTQ, we have been fortunate to participate in various programs, such as one produced by the National LGBT Chamber of Commerce, which has afforded us opportunities to connect with LGBT businesses. While it hasn't resulted in any contracts to report in 2019, we're hopeful to improve those results this year in 2020. A challenge beyond our shrinking regulated footprint is an ongoing reality that achieving and improving diversity spend results are impacted, especially in the short term, when a supplier's diversity status changes through mergers, acquisitions, or a change in certification, or if there are changes in our business models, such as when work is brought in-house by Verizon. We've seen this exact scenario play out with two large firms in 2019, and we lost the ability to include them in our calculations, thus depressing our results last year. In fact, these types of challenges accounted for a loss of over $9.4 million, or 15.9% of our reportable diverse spend in Maryland. Now, as the pandemic raced around the world, it certainly had a major impact on the business landscape here in Maryland. Specifically for Verizon, we had challenges as we scaled back on many of the projects where our diverse supplier partners were engaged. Accordingly, we expect to see a challenging diverse supplier report for 2020. We enter the second half of this year with our eyes wide open as we plan to accomplish the work we need to do to provide our customers with the telecommunications needs that are vital in this new normal as we tackle COVID-19. Now, regarding the tracking of LGBTQ and veteran-owned businesses, Verizon had already set up and monitored these categories, so we're able to easily flag them in our systems, track them for any number of reports and reviews. The biggest challenge in this diverse supplier space is finding those LGBTQ and veteran-owned firms that offer products and services that can meet our requirements and have the scale and scope to deliver on Verizon projects. We seek to add to that database of qualified vendors in this space, as outlined earlier, so we can monitor LGBTQ and veteran-owned firms easily, and we will continue to actively seek qualified suppliers. Now, regarding Tier 2 tracking, Verizon has a multi-tiered approach to supplier diversity spend, and we strongly encourage our prime suppliers to honor their commitment to diversity by committing to a targeted diversity spend as well as year-over-year improvement in their subcontracting diverse spend. We routinely review suppliers that have not reported Tier 2 spend, and we follow up with them requesting that they report the results to us quarterly. We invest heavily in the collection of data and believe that the indirect Tier 2 diverse spend is a critical component of our prime supplier contracts, and we work to ensure suppliers honor those commitments. Now, Verizon's overall supplier diversity results slipped in 2019 to 11.3%. One of the drivers for our dip from last year was a significant decrease in spend with our largest minority supplier. The spending with them often varies and is not timed to maintain a calendar year consistency, but rather with the needs of the business. We also saw a decrease in spend across the board with all of our suppliers. In 2020, with the COVID impacts, we anticipate that some procurement areas will continue to see a decline in spend, for example, event planning, while other areas may see an increase in spend, such as building maintenance. I would like to end on a few positive notes and share some good news. For example, Verizon's spend with veteran and disabled veteran suppliers made up over half of the total Verizon diverse supplier spend in 2019. Also, our diverse spend with women-owned enterprises remains strong at $5.4 million and is a strong component to our overall supplier diversity investment. While it's important to note that Verizon added 5 new diverse vendors last year, it's also important to appreciate that 20% of our top 25 suppliers are diverse. Lastly, in September, we will be holding a premier supplier academy session to bring Black-owned businesses together with our sourcing and business stakeholders within Verizon to discuss procurement opportunities. Maryland minority suppliers will certainly be included in this session. So thank you for this opportunity to report on our progress. I hope you get a sense of the focus and energy that Verizon is bringing to the diverse supplier opportunities in Maryland, and I'm excited to come back next year to share the results of our ongoing efforts. Thank you, and I will stay online and available for any questions that you might have at the end.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, for sharing Verizon's achievements and more currently the challenges that you and others are facing.
Thank you.
Next, we'll turn to MQ Riding. She is the Manager of Marketing and Communications with Chesapeake Utilities.
Thank you, Chairman Stanek and the other commissioners for the opportunity to talk about Chesapeake Utilities' accomplishments in supplier diversity. My name is MQ Riding, and I am the manager of marketing and communications for the company. I live in rural Kent County, Maryland, so I sincerely appreciate your willingness to hold this hearing virtually. It demonstrates your commitment to health and well-being of all the individuals participating in this event. Chesapeake Utilities is headquartered on the Delmarva Peninsula, operations in 5 of the 9 Eastern Shore counties. It is committed to supporting the communities, businesses, and residents where we operate on the peninsula. Our company is continuing the process of identifying or confirming suppliers currently used by Chesapeake who identify as minority, women, and/or veteran-owned businesses. In 2019, we expanded the ability to identify any contractors we might have been missing through internal review and regular internal reporting. We have also continued our internal outreach to managers who bid on projects and have reiterated the importance of expanding our network of approved contractors to include DBEs. In addition, we've begun to seek the additional categories of disadvantaged business owners as directed by the Commission. Included on the self-identification form we have are categories for LGBTQ and service-disabled veteran-owned businesses. Chesapeake continues to work with Easton Utilities and Choptank Electric in our alliance of Eastern Shore utility service providers known as the Eastern Shore Energy Alliance, or ESEA. The companies have similar spending thresholds, geographic areas, and access to a similar pool of contractors. However, we are different in the way we're structured. Chesapeake is investor-owned, Easton is municipal-owned, and Choptank is member-owned. Regardless, our aim is to work together to identify and employ certified DBE contractors and vendors who live and work in our area. With coordinated outreach, the ESEA shares our DBE vendor lists among the 3 companies, which has expanded our opportunities to employ DBE contractors and vendors. In 2019, ESEA was proactive in our efforts, and we coordinated posting a minority vendor page on each of our individual companies' websites. We created an identifiable brand for ESEA so that minority vendors could recognize us in advertising and on social media. Working together, we planned a contractor and vendor event in Salisbury, Maryland on May 1, 2019. Just prior to the event, we promoted it among various outlets, print, social media, and radio spots to increase visibility. In addition, we sent direct email invitations to prospects based on the MDOT approved vendor list for DBEs. The actual attendance was minimal. Only 6 companies came to the event. However, we felt the increased awareness was positive and our partnership was reinforced and elevated, making it worth the effort and time investment. Despite all of our efforts, Chesapeake Utilities' diverse spend percentage for 2019 went down over the previous year in 2018. In 2019, DBE spending was 10.15% compared to 13.8% in 2018. Now, you might think with all that extra effort made in a year, we might lose our momentum or even become disillusioned. However, that's not the case. Chesapeake continues to firmly believe in supporting the disadvantaged business communities on the Delmarva Peninsula, and we plan to do more once the current situation with the COVID-19 pandemic is under control. To that end, Chesapeake Utilities Corporation early regarding protocols and safety measures around COVID. Being considered essential workers, at the beginning of March, we began to limit interstate travel, requiring social distancing, wearing COVID PPE, such as masks and gloves, distributing hand sanitizer in all company vehicles. In addition, operation protocols were instituted for the safety of crew, team members, and our customers. In April, when PPE supplies were in high demand and fairly scarce on the peninsula, Chesapeake Utilities supported the local Chamber of Commerce, where our headquarters are located, by contributing to COVID PPE care packages for small to medium businesses in our area, many of them DBEs. They were having trouble sourcing the necessary COVID PE to maintain their operations or even return to business as normal. Chesapeake Utilities has taken several steps to assist both our residential and business customers during the COVID-19 pandemic. To minimize potential further financial hardships, the company voluntarily adopted the policy to suspend service disconnections and has waived all late payment fees until further notice. That was prior to any commission mandate. The culture at Chesapeake Utilities is one of inclusion and acceptance. And equity, diversity, and inclusion, we call it the EDI Council, has been established to reflect the communities that we serve. There is a great deal of interest to enhance our already high commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion. And with the EDI Council in place, going forward, the recommendations of the council will drive our business strategies, our policies and procedures, as well as individual development and community and DBE contractor outreach. The charter of the EDI Council supports additional focus on supplier diversity. It is our intent to increase the effort dedicated to hiring contractors in the communities we serve who are disadvantaged. To that end, this year will be a transition for me as Chesapeake's representative on the Minority Forum. I would like to introduce virtually Amy Zook, a procurement specialist in our procurement department. We will work together over the next 12 months so she can learn about diverse suppliers and how to proactively contract with DBEs in our region. The Eastern Shore of Maryland is a region that is a blend of rural, small town, urban, and resort communities. Supporting these communities and the families that live here is a priority to us. In March, Chesapeake Utilities donated $7,500 to Eastern Shore nonprofits to help those in need in the counties where we serve. Much of the Eastern Shore is economically disadvantaged, and our company believes bringing clean, affordable natural gas to communities, small and medium businesses, and state institutions will support the prosperity on the shore. And with that, I just want to remind everyone that Chesapeake Utilities is committed to safely delivering natural gas. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Riding, and welcome, Ms. Zook. And we have two more utilities to go, both also members of the Eastern Shore Alliance. We now turn to Easton Utilities with John Hines, Electric Department Manager. Mr. Hines.
Good afternoon, Chairman Stanek. Can you hear me okay?
We can, yes.
Wonderful, thank you. Hello, fellow commissioners as well. I'm John Hines, Electric Department Manager for Easton Utilities. Since signing the MOU in 2009, Easton Utilities has continually encouraged each and every diverse business owner to share how they can partner with Easton Utilities and our customers. We've created a very welcoming environment for all diverse suppliers to showcase their products, services, capabilities to our purchasing and procurement teams. The aspirational goal and increasing diverse spend is supported at every level across our entire organization. While we only report annually on our electric business procurement practices, our other businesses have also benefited from the relationships established under this program. Easton, along with our partners, as you've heard from MQ, Chop Tank Electric, and the Eastern Shore Energy Alliance, we are really looking to further engagement of our Eastern Shore partners. We've spent considerable effort, and we've enjoyed the opportunity of meeting and finding new businesses, diverse businesses on the shore. We continue to benefit from the Maryland Utility Forum and those relationships to find and engage new diverse suppliers. Our engagement obstacles in the last year, and particularly due to COVID, we do perform much of our work internally. We're a very small company, and we tend to hire only contract resources on a limited basis. The highs and lows that you'll see in the report on our historical data really refer to when large projects permit outsourcing of contract labor versus when we just procure on an annual basis our daily needs. Since COVID-19, we've made more direct outreach to diverse suppliers, and that has benefited through some great new relationships and more one-on-one. So I've enjoyed the opportunity to meet many new vendors and use the forum in a different way. I've enjoyed working with the Utility Forum continuously since 2009, and watching this program make tremendous impact throughout the entire state. Eastern remains committed to this aspirational goal, and we look forward to working on this program in the coming year. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hine. And finally, last but not least, we have a representative from the Choptank Electric Cooperative. And I should stress that this isn't a race. Although there is a competitive edge, we at the Commission recognize that this is a voluntary program, and we appreciate all of our utilities and public service companies who have decided to participate, who have signed the MOU, and every company today has shown that they are continued to have a commitment and make the efforts towards incrementally moving forward and raising those numbers. So we'll now finally turn to Ms. Tiffany Troutman. She is the Manager of Finance and Regulatory Affairs at Choptank.
Thank you. Can you hear me, Chairman?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Tiffany Troutman, Manager of Finance and Regulatory Affairs for Choptank Electric. Also present today is Sarah Dahl, General Counsel for Choptank Electric Cooperative. Choptank is a not-for-profit, member-owned electric distribution cooperative serving all 9 counties on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. We are governed by a board of directors that is elected by the member owners. We are guided by 7 cooperative principles, one being concern for community, which includes supporting local businesses. About 74% of our diverse spend was through local vendors. Since last year's hearing and public determination, Choptank remains accessible to all companies who want to do business with us. Available on our website is a vendor contractor package for businesses who are interested in working with Choptank. Contained in this package is information regarding the MOU and a supplier diversity form. As stated at the hearing last year, we changed our supplier form to include LGBT and veteran-owned categories, but have received very little response. Additionally, Choptank has worked extensively with the forum to update the MOU. Our geographic location continues to be an obstacle in achieving the 25% goal. In 2019, Choptank leadership decided to take the direction of performing more jobs in-house. This action reduced our sourceable and diverse spend, but was a savings to our members. Choptank's commitment to the Eastern Shore Energy Alliance remains strong. As reported by Ms. Riding, the Eastern Shore Energy Alliance hosted a vendor day on the Eastern Shore of Maryland in 2019. The event was promoted through various outlets, although vendor participation was minimal. Additionally, our alliance meets regularly. We share information, and a united logo was created, which is located on all ESEA utility websites. Choptank Electric Cooperative exists to provide reliable and cost-effective electricity that improves the quality of life for our member owners. We are committed to service excellence, guided by the 7 cooperative principles. During these extremely hard times people are facing during the coronavirus pandemic, Choptank has once again reaffirmed one of its guiding principles, concern for community, by participating in local events that help support the needs of our local community. We look forward to our continued participation with ESEA, and as always, Choptank remains committed to supporting all businesses in our community. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Troutman. At this point, we'll entertain questions from the commissioners of the 16 entities that have filed reports. We'll begin with Commissioner Linton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And congratulations to all of the companies for your reports and for the information you provided today. So most of you have been with this program and involved in this program since the very beginning here at the Commission. And so your continued commitment to it has been not only evidenced as part of your presentations here today, but the growth that you've shown over the period of time from the beginning. It's always nice to go back and look at some of those initial filings that were made 10 years ago and see what some of the numbers look like then versus today. Not only has the quality of the data improved, but the staff's improved with the work that they've produced as well. So congratulations to you and thank you for your continued commitment. I have three different topics that I wanted to raise. First with BGE, if Ms. Lewis is still on the line.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You were one of the companies that had a very large number of companies that participated through your program, firms that were LGBT firms. And I was curious as to if you could give us some insight into the basis for those numbers. Were those firms that you were already working with? Did you conduct additional outreach beyond what you would normally do in order to find those new firms? Because some of the other companies have not had the opportunity to expand their numbers in that particular new category. So I was curious if you could share some insights into how you were able to achieve those numbers.
So specifically with LGBT firms. So what we do is we work, Frank Kelly leads our supplier diversity office in Baltimore. And Frank is very tied in to the community, very tied in to the various organizations out there in the Baltimore and the Maryland area. So with Frank's expertise, we typically take a look at what is going to be sourced, what's coming up on the sourcing calendar, and we make sure that we are being inclusive by partnering with those external organizations like the NGLCC, like the Capital Region Minority Supplier Development Council, making sure that we're identifying in advance suppliers that we may be able to work with for future opportunities. So it's really about making sure that we are engaged in the community and making sure that we're engaged out in the marketplace so that we'll know who's available and the work that they can do for us. This is a part of our overall process at Exelon and BGE in particular, and looking for a diverse partner.
Okay. Initially, I was going to suggest that you'll have to hire Frank out for everybody else if that's the primary source, but it sounds more like it's just a matter of being more engaged in the community.
Engaged, yes. And we also make sure that in our other regions as well, with PepCo, with DPL, and then with the other parts of Exelon, that our supplier diversity managers and our organization is very engaged in the community and knowing who's available, what the work is, and where the opportunities lie.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for that. I'd hope that Mr. Kelly and BG would share some of that information with the members of the utility forum so that as we proceed in future reports, we'll be able to see other companies also engaged in the same way, or at least in a similar way as what BG has done.
Yeah, thank you.
For Mr. Smith at Verizon, I don't know if you're still online.
Yep,
you are.
I'm here.
You spoke a lot about some of the challenges Verizon had at meeting its goals for this year. Verizon certainly, as I said earlier, has been engaged in this program since the beginning and has reported numbers very well and exceedingly high in the past. But you have dual challenges. One, of course, everybody's facing is with COVID-19, but the other is just within your industry itself with a number of changes. So I'm curious as to how the company is going to respond to both of those challenges at the same time moving forward. What types of new initiatives are you going to come up with? Or have you already come up with some new solutions in order to encourage continued growth back to where the numbers used to be for Verizon?
No, I appreciate your comments, Commissioner. That's exactly how we feel as well. We used to have much better numbers. We also, as you mentioned, our business is changing. We're shrinking dramatically on our copper landline business, but that doesn't mean that our commitment to the diverse supplier MOU is any different. To that end, we've introduced a couple new programs. So a quick answer to your question, we're trying to run a little bit faster. We're introducing some new programs. I'll give you an example of one called Edge Mentees. It's where we bring senior leaders of our business together with some diverse supplier CEOs, and they become advocates for the diverse suppliers. They become mentors. They provide training, education, and they become the voice for that supplier within Verizon and then promote them within Verizon among the business units. That program was supposed to kick off in 2020. COVID and the scramble to continue our business slowed that down. We're expecting towards the end of 2020 to get that thing started. We're very excited about that one. We have other programs we're ramping up, the Premier Supplier Academy, we've done that in the past. Working with all the various chambers of commerce, doing virtual matchmaking. I think you heard a few firms doing the same thing. So we're going to ramp up our virtual matchmaking. So we're just going to keep try to run faster in spite of the hurdles that we have in front of us.
Okay. Very well. I'm expecting good things from Verizon in the future. So
I appreciate the pressure, sir.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. My third comment was for the members of the utility forum regarding and Vicky and the WGO, and Mr. Davis may want to chime in as well. We had several panelists speak earlier today, and thanks also to our panelists and of course to Secretary Reed, my good friend, for giving us setting some context for some of the programs that we're talking about today. Our panelists talked a lot about the need to have capital. And it turns out that prior to COVID-19, some of the companies have already been engaged in supporting businesses in training and educational efforts. But we actually did have, through WGL, has their Strive for 35 fund. It's part of the merger commitment, Condition 9C is part of the Alta Gas merger. So I'd like to request, and I'd say this would be a formal request to the utility forum, to review and to look at, and perhaps to do a little learning about the Strive for 35 fund and the general concept behind it, so that we could see if it's something that would work in different ways with the other companies. Basically, and well, let me let Mr. Davis, if he's still on the line, if he could take a moment and tell us a little about the condition itself and exactly how it was designed to work.
Certainly, thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate the opportunity. So, initially when we were in the development of the Strive for 35 plan, we wanted to look at areas of concern for small businesses. And again, all are aware, working capital is one of them. So we thought that, we are aware that bigger financial institutions are not always small business friendly. And so we looked at this as a vehicle to at least try to address the issue of working capital. And so in the development of it, we wanted to make it available to the areas we serve. I mean, of course, we provide services in the region. However, Maryland specifically, and so in the development of it, we brought in a group that we believe engaged with small businesses, and again, that's FSC First. And so the objective is specifically for suppliers in the natural gas industry, because again, that's an area that we see as a gap. And so again, as I mentioned, it's in the initial phase. Again, COVID kind of blew off the doors for our marketing and engagement. So we're kind of recalibrating and planning chartering a new course. And I'd be happy to, maybe in the next forum meeting, to present a little bit more detail to my colleagues and seeing if there are some ways to
Great. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And to the other companies, for some of you, if you're familiar with this particular condition of the merger case, clearly different things happen in mergers. So, there's always some, I'll just say it bluntly, there's always additional money available. So I'm not suggesting that the same kind of funding structure has to occur, but I think there's some creative ways to partner with banking institutions where they know that particular firms that have been trained and have been familiar with the utility industry are able to get financial capital as a result of that. So I don't think that this is a fairly new concept. I think there's other places where it occurs, but I believe that partnership's got additional value that we can explore here. So I'd encourage the forum. There's a lot of very sharp people there. I know many of you. I don't know the new folks. It's been a couple of years, but I'm sure that all of you will be able to get together and come up with some unique way of helping us to tackle a challenge that some of our panelists talked about earlier today. So thank you again, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Linton. Do additional commissioners have questions or comments?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, Herman.
Thank you very much. So I think I'll address this to the utility forum because I don't think I want 16 different answers. But I'm wondering if the forum, and then if any of the other companies have a specific idea that they had, that would be great to hear. But do you have any ideas about how you can really redouble your efforts to reach the small MBEs and women-owned businesses? Those are potentially your customers as well as potential vendors, and staying in business is good for everybody. It's good for the community, it's good for the utility company, and of course it's good for the business. So do you have any ideas, or are you looking for ways to reach out to small businesses? Maybe with respect to capital, if they're able to get a contract, they can use that contract and then be able to borrow money once they have the contract in hand. So is there any ideas that you have about trying to engage these really small businesses that I think are really suffering? Thank you.
I can speak to Potomac Edison First Energy. We as the forum, it's not something we've addressed as of yet. But for us, we've been working with our primes, encouraging them to work with diverse suppliers on their subcontracting to ensure that we're including those ones who may not be able to take on the whole contract themselves, but to get a portion of it and to get their foot in the door to help them get their business off the ground and grow them as well. So that is definitely one thing. And then as well, with the mentorship program, because we're looking at not only smaller suppliers we're doing business with, but new ones as well, as a way to educate them on how to do business with us and have them meet the project managers and the people in the field so that they know who they are. And when those bids do come up, we can give them, a closer look because we're familiar with what they do in order to get them in and get their business up and going.
Thank you. I don't know if any of the other companies have a comment. I didn't expect everybody to have to chime in, but if anybody does have a comment, I'd be happy to hear it.
This is MQ Riding with Chesapeake Utilities. What we do is we get very active in the local Chamber of Commerce. So a lot of small businesses are members at chambers because it gives them a networking opportunity. For example, our Vice President of Chesapeake Utilities is the chairman of the local Chamber of Commerce near our headquarters. So we try to be very active that way, and that way we can have a relationship before we actually have the dollars to spend, and we know the companies, and we can offer to them to competitively bid on it.
And I will tag on to that. Thank you, MQ. We are also actively involved with the local chambers as well, as a way to meet and work with small businesses.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Herman. Any additional questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Hi, Commissioner O'Donnell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had a couple questions. I think similarly to Commissioner Herman, I want to ask the utility forum so we don't get 16 answers, but is there any experience with improvement in the certification process for the LGBTQ community in 2019 that was discernible? I know we had taken recommendations for some tweaks to that process, and I believe we accomplished that. But has anybody seen anything that's significant, better or worse in that process from last year?
I have not seen anything significant from there. I know earlier this year I had started to work with them and was going to work with them on an event. Unfortunately, with everything that happened, it's been postponed, so I don't have anything additional at this time. I don't know, MQ or Kathy, anybody?
Nothing to add there. Thank you, Ben.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add either, other than I do believe that the Maryland LGBT chamber that we're a member of does have a certification process, but I'm not familiar with exactly what it is.
Okay, thank you very much. Second area I wanted to ask, have any of the signatories who have numbers of significance in the veteran service-related disability supplier community experienced a decrease by the, have you seen any empirical data of a decrease in the procurement with service-related disability-owned businesses versus veteran-owned businesses? In other words, do you have any empirical data that correlates what we heard from staff in my question at the beginning?
I do not have any, and we as the forum, I don't believe we have any empirical data at this point in time. I know we've had some challenges in the past in finding qualified service disabled businesses. You know, we being First Energy Potomac Edison has been very active with the service disabled veteran organization, as well as other various veteran organizations. And I do quite often use their databases to try and find suppliers to do the work. It's just sometimes it's a bit challenging matching up with what we're looking for and what's available through those organizations.
Understood. I'm specifically looking for evidence of displacement instead of adding veteran-owned businesses, becoming an incremental additive to this, that it's actually displacing another category, which troubles me a bit.
Okay.
So,
yeah, I know for us, we have not displaced. We've tried to add. We've always done business with veterans, but anything we've brought has not displaced any service disabled.
okay. Well, thank you for that. Mr. Smith from Verizon, are you still there?
Yes, sir.
Your 11.3, a decrease to 11.3% DSP, was that nationally or in Maryland? That specifically asked?
That's just in Maryland. We have very strong results nationally, but in Maryland, due to some of the factors I mentioned, we have seen the 11.3.
Okay, very good. So thank you. Thank you to all the signatories, and thank you for your presentations today. It's very helpful, and your participation in this in these programs is very, very much appreciated. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. In closing today, we've heard from many of our utilities. Obviously, concerns related to the impacts of COVID-19 has permeated the conversation. This will obviously impact the results of the 2020 reports that we'll receive next spring. I want to thank everybody for doubling down on their commitment today. I want to thank our 3 diverse suppliers who shared their perspectives and experiences with us, as well as our special guest speakers this morning. This is an important program that we've been running for many years now, both to me and to my fellow commissioners. We look forward to issuing an order in the very near future regarding any outcomes related to the events. We had a very nice in-person meeting last year at the Reginald Lewis Museum in Baltimore. This year we were scheduled to meet at a venue at the Baltimore City Community College. I want to extend my thanks to Baltimore City Community College for offering that space, although we're in virtual cyberspace today. And hopefully next year we could gather once again in person, although that seems like a long way off. So in closing, I do want to thank all the participants on today's virtual meeting and remind everybody that to the extent any additional comments wish to be made, they could be made in writing in PC52 by July 31st of this year. Again, thank you for your time. Thank you for participating. And this meeting is now adjourned.